applying to the stick, and all the time, like there were the moment in the year that he told me, "Hey, listen, can I uh, can I hold your finger?" So I put the finger, and he holded my finger, and he showed me how strongly I hold in the stick, and then he showed me, okay, and do you know how strong do you need to hold it? How strong do you need to hold the stick? Yeah, show me. So he just barely touched my finger. It means like you need a very little corrections, right? You need a very little force to control the airplane, especially when you have a good speed, right? Of course, when you're landing, your speed is lower and you need to over control it a little bit, but you need a very, very,
I,
very
I,
tiny
I
forces.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. You're saying everything's spot on point, man. Let's just get to the friction part, like the
Ah,
atmosphere
okay.
itself.
Okay. Let's get to that point then. So the thing is, maybe how I understand friction is, let's say we have molecules, right? And these molecules, I know a scientific person or some sort, but these molecules, for me, I think they try to stick to each other a little bit. Some molecules they stick to each other better. Some molecules they stick to each other worse. But they generally try to stick to each other. And when you have a lot of molecules trying to stick to each other, when you pull a bunch of molecules into the one direction, the neighbors they're also trying to move with them. But So we have the Earth, right? And the Earth is rotating, and the surface of the Earth is a lot of different molecules, like trees, houses, ocean, and we have air, which also consists of the molecules. And this air, so the molecules of the air, they have a friction between each other. They have a friction between the Earth. They have a friction between planes and birds and everything, right? But the thing is, the moment they have a friction, they're kind of transferring the energy, and slowly but surely, I think they go. Yeah, hello. And slowly
You,
but surely, let's say you have.
I know you can. There is a visual that you can put into your mind when you're like trying to think of air as like a viscous kind of in a way. Like if you are in your bedroom or just in a still room with the windows closed, right, and you
Yeah,
light some incense, right? You look at you like a good quality incense as well. It has to be good quality so that you get this perfect stream of smoke that just comes out. Because like if it's tight pack, you're going to get like this perfect stream of smoke rather than sporadic, and you'll see the
yeah,
action of the smoke, how it interacts, and the speeds that it rises, even with hot air, and you can see how it is dynamic with the air. You can get a visualization of like the thickness of air. Yeah, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
understand that there is no thickness until it is impressioned on itself. Like if you don't try and oppose it, there is really no viscosity to it until there's movement added, right?
Well, it is like what the thing that you uh, telling is, it's called laminar flow, maybe, right? So
So
and
you
then
agree
you
with
have,
friction. Everything that you've said so far, you agree that there will definitely be friction in the air up against the Earth rotating at 400 meters per second, right?
well, yeah, of course, yeah. I do agree that friction is exists, and I'm explaining what friction is from my perspective, uh, and I'm just didn't get to the point yet. Why we don't feel the turbulence in the air while moving that fast?
Do you know
So
what turbulence is?
yeah, it's inconsistency in the flow of something, I guess. Not maybe I'm not. It's not scientific explanation, but yeah.
I've been dropped in columns, turbulent columns that were so deep, the plane felt like it had been falling for like half a minute. Unbelievable, ginormous plane with 500 people on board, and it just suddenly drops like straight down, and you can count 30, 29, 20. It's just falling. It's like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So I can visualize how those columns of air look like if I'm counting the turbulent bumps and the drops, and then you could kind of graph it in your mind of how it looks, and you can see
Well,
it's
yeah.
kind of just like if you've ever seen how one of those guys, they do what is it called, peak gliding, or it's like
Gliding. Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about
they're on a
the
canoe. They're on a canoe and they have a parachute and they just glide around the
yeah, I
mountain
know that.
peaks.
Yeah. But
That
turbulences, they're not
you can
always
see how he has
false.
to evaluate his situation all the time by avoiding
Yeah.
the troughs and the highs as you go over the peaks, and as you go into the valleys, you get lift and no lift, and it's just so consistent. That can also translate up into the air as well, up to
Yeah.
like
Yeah, of course.
the height of a commercial jet. Yeah, at the
Well,
highest point. Yeah.
I'd like to hear. I'd like
well,
to hear his explanation for why he doesn't feel the turbulence going fast.
okay. So the thing is, yeah, I can continue on that, and I can talk a little bit about the
News
this heat
perspective.
and gliders. Gliders, they are not also using this heat like this coming from the oil. They also the reason they fly above the mountains, because when you have a wind and this wind is coming through the mountain, and the mountain is kind of is acting like a ramp, right, for the this flow of air, and then you have the air blowing up at the tip of the mountain, and this is how we have a free energy basically when you're gliding. But yeah, the explanation
Do
about
you
the
know? Do you know the? Do you know the origin of wind? Do you know where wind comes from?
oh, I know I don't, I think, but we can get into that. I think I'm not very good at this topic. I want to finish the
You know what
explanation
I'd like to
about the
ask though? Can I just ask you one
yeah,
question? When
yeah.
you flying your plane, when you were landing your plane, did you ever have to land on a surface that's moving eastward with its rotation at all? Did you ever have to land on a surface that was rotating eastward, not in sync
No,
with your plane?
no. Of course not.
No. So it always just seemed, at least, to be perfectly stationary, right? That you're landing on it
Well,
to be a
yeah, we
perfectly
need to account for wind.
rotation.
We're trying to avoid a tailwind. We
Right,
want
wind is
to,
different.
yeah,
Yeah, if
it's
you had to
different, of
deal with
course,
wind, would you agree that if you had to deal with winds blowing you around, as well as the rotation of the Earth not being in sync with your plane and the eastward tangential velocity,
of
you would
course,
have two
yeah,
things to deal with, right? You'd have the surface
of course,
rotating at a different speed eastward, as well as winds, and it'd be totally two different things. But you only deal with winds when you land, right?
of course, yeah. I want
Yeah.
to
So,
get to the
so
explanation of the.
you have to believe that you're in perfect sync. Like if you flew from like the 500-mile-per-hour latitude, right? And you're supposed to have the conserved momentum of where it's supposed to be 500 miles an hour. You have that conserved momentum supposedly when you start off, but then if you flew to the equator, right? Like say it's like
Well,
a like
not,
a
but
it's
not
like say it's like a say it's a
not
joyriding
perfect.
pilot, like you. Yeah, but the joyriding pilot, right? He doesn't have anything to correct for because he has no path. Let's say he gets to the equator and he's going like west southwest against the spin. Now the surface is moving at 1,000 miles an hour compared to the 500 where he started off from, right? So now,
Yeah,
how is it that you would believe when you get to the equator that now your plane is going twice as fast eastward, even though you didn't do anything? You were just joyriding. You went west southwest against the spin. So now you have
yeah.
to believe the friction from the air has made your plane go faster, kind of backwards if you're going westward. So now your plane's going
No,
backwards twice as fast as where you took off from if you land where it's
no.
1,000 miles an hour.
It's
But
not like that
how
because
is it in sync with the Earth? How is it in sync with the
exact.
Earth going twice as fast
Let
eastward?
yeah. Let me explain. So I was talking about
Okay.
friction before, and I was
Hmm.
talking about molecules that have a friction between each other. All the molecules
Right, I
that
heard
have
that.
friction between each
Right. So you're saying
and
the air makes you go twice as fast backwards.
No. I'm explaining about the friction between molecules. So, and
Okay, I know
the
about that.
high, yeah, and the higher we move, right, the less molecules
Hmm.
do we have, and
Hmm.
less friction we have. So, what happens is we
Yeah,
have,
and fluid dynamics,
so
you have slippage because of fluid dynamics.
of course,
You have
and
slippage. You
also,
have slippage like right off the ground. If the Earth were rotating, you'd have slippage like very, very, like not that high up. In fact, probably if it was rotating, you just have like this, like
yeah,
just a very thin layer at the surface actually moving in perfect sync with the rotation. And then because of fluid dynamics, you'd have a bunch of slippage. And when you get really high up, you have jet streams, but also you have less molecules for the friction. So it would
of
lag
course,
behind within your
yeah,
jet streams, right? The jet streams are actually
yeah,
flat Earth related. But go ahead.
but
So how is it
but
that your plane is going backwards in sync with the Earth so you can treat the Earth as stationary is the question.
because air is moving with the earth and I'm moving in this air, right? So
Right.
I'm
But what
moving
about the
in the
slippage? What about the slippage
what
we just talked about? The slippage,
again?
fluid dynamics wouldn't allow, even if there was a force that was making your plane go backwards twice as fast as where you took off from, right? Because you're flying against the spin with no ground path. So you're not correcting for anything. You have to believe the air is carrying your plane in an eastward vector that has nothing to do with your forward speed or any of that. You don't even know anything about it. You just have to
Of
believe it
course,
happens, right? So there's
I'm
two
not.
options. Either you're in perfect sync because the air pushed your plane backwards, even though you're flying against it, and now you're going 1,000 miles an hour backwards, but slowing down forwards without any kind of force at all felt. You don't feel any headwind. You don't feel it. It's just like it's stationary. So either it's stationary, and that's why you can treat it like that, or you're in perfect sync because the air is carrying you in perfect sync, and you have to put all your faith in the air to make it safe for you to land.
It's a lot of things to account for in a debate, to be honest.
I mean, that's a
So
faith. That's a faith-based thing, really. If every time you fly, you're just putting your faith in the air, making your plane go in perfect sync with the rotation, even though fluid dynamics doesn't even allow that to happen. That's like a
what
really, I mean, that's an amazing faith because there's
The thing
slippage.
is,
The
the
atmosphere,
thing
the
is in the
atmosphere does
high,
not move in
in,
lockstep. They
but
don't claim
sorry,
lockstep atmosphere. They can't claim lockstep atmosphere because of fluid dynamics. But
get
they pretend it's lockstep and moving the plane in perfect sync, even though they have to admit even the atmosphere itself wouldn't be in perfect sync.
well, of
he
course
just
it's
admitted that he just admitted, right, that in the highest part of the atmosphere, the molecules are less, so you're going to have
Right.
less friction, right? So I agree that if there was something close to a vacuum, before there became like an apparent container, because you'd have to still have containment for sure, but I agree that you can get up to a space of the atmosphere where it's pretty much frictionless. I can agree
Well,
with
the thing
that,
is that all
and
of
that's
you know
why
what I
rockets
figured
don't
out
work
is
in space anyway.
kinematics.
But like
It's,
he can't. The thing is,
it's
he can't negate the problem with the topographical Earth and all of its features up against the atmosphere going 400 meters per second. That's friction that he needs to account for in his paradigm, and his
it'd be
paradigm
turbulence.
doesn't
That
include
friction
that.
would cause turbulence too. But regardless,
but
you would feel it. It
okay,
wouldn't. You can't have a force. You can't have the force of an air that's not a wind, because the claim of the
okay. So,
globe Earth is
with when we're talking
all
about
the winds are
turbulence,
moved in perfect sync too.
okay. So, but here's the thing: when you're talking about the turbulence needs to be created by something. It's not going. It's not if you have a really high speed, right? You might not have like let's say you're in a high speed flow, but if this flow is laminar, you will not going to feel that speed. Like in a plane, you are going like through the laminar flow, and you're not feeling the speed because you don't have a
Right.
change of the
That's the
momentum.
concept.
You don't.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible you're not feeling. But to see how there's stuff like you know about vector addition, right? Like if you're going north, or let's say you're headed just straight south. Now, if your plane is accelerating to the east, like say from 500 to 1,000, if your plane has a sideways acceleration of an extra 500 miles an hour, you have to add that affects your forward speed, right? You can't just have an extra 500 miles an hour plane as like a dynamic plane,
Well,
right?
no,
On the
no,
plane, so it can
not
land. That's a
really.
dynamic thing. It has to be moving in perfect sync with the ground, so you can treat it as stationary. So it
No,
has to be
not really,
moving a
because
thousand miles an hour eastward, and that vector not affecting your forward speed doesn't work because your plane can't
well,
speed up in one direction and not speed up in its forward direction without the vector mass.
no, it's not working
You would
like
add
that.
them. It would affect your forward speed if you were going 500 miles per hour faster sideways.
No, the thing is,
Yeah,
the only thing that
so it doesn't matter.
controls
You
my,
wouldn't be in sync with the Earth to land anyway. You wouldn't be in sync. You wouldn't be in perfect sync because the
but the
air
air,
moves you in perfect sync. They can't even claim that.
but
They don't even try to
air
claim that, but they
does
say
not.
it.
So the thing is, the air does not move very fast in relation to the ground. Like, yeah, we have winds, uh, of course, and winds.
Right? You
It's
just
like,
have winds. You don't have air moving eastward. You don't have air moving
I mean,
eastward, but you can
not that
pretend
hard. I
it's
mean,
moving in perfect sync eastward, or the Earth is just stationary and the winds are like over a flat Earth and it's not moving. Because when the air and there's no wind, that's when the air is supposed to be in perfect sync, right? When there's no wind.
Well, he has to prove
So you
it.
have to
He has
believe
to
it's either
prove it.
stationary or it's moving in perfect sync. But there's no way to prove it because they don't even try to claim it, Carlos. They can't try. They can't claim lockstep atmosphere, and the atmosphere, even if it wasn't a lockstep, doesn't even move the plane eastward faster. They just have to pretend it does because they have a
hold on.
kinematic claim that they're
I'm
starting off
really trying
with
to
conserved
explain,
momentum.
but
They pretend
the
the
thing
plane's
is,
moving in perfect sync at 500 miles an hour, and then they have to pretend it's a dynamic claim because this plane had to speed up faster in the eastward direction, and the pilot never does that, and the wind doesn't do it because that's not the atmosphere they're talking about. There would have to be some kind of
but
force that is unknown and undetectable and doesn't add to your speed or affect your speed, but the dynamic claim of 1,000 mile an hour eastward tangential velocity in perfect sync
no,
with the Earth is the only way you'd be able to treat it as stationary.
sorry, but it's not working exactly like that in the air. So the
Okay.
moment the plane is on the ground, we are we actually don't have a good speed indicators except for a GPS, right? We like I measured it because we actually don't need to know how fast we are moving on the ground when we taxi in. The only thing that matter is not the absolute speed, but the air speed. And what is the airspeed? Is the speed that we are moving through the flow of the air. So air might be moving because of the wind. Air might not be moving in relation to the ground. So it might be not windy conditions, right? But the moment we in the air, it's not really matter because we are flying in the air and we are not going to account for the speed on the ground or the speed that Earth is moving around the sun or something like that. We are moving through the air. The most
Yeah,
important thing is
that's
our
why it's a
airspeed.
fix-all. You can't treat the atmosphere like a fix-all, where it's just like we're going to pretend that the atmosphere is in perfect sync, even though fluid dynamics doesn't even allow us to claim that. But then we're also
Okay,
going to
but can
pretend
I?
because the plane is in the air, doesn't matter if there's winds going in the opposite direction of the rotation. Those winds
Uh,
pushing him in the opposite direction are overcome by the air as a whole and still moving them eastward perfectly in sync, even though slippage would be a thing and there'd be no way to be in perfect sync. But because you're in perfect sync, either the Earth's
let me correct
stationary
you.
or it's some miracle every time you land the plane.
No, it's not a miracle. The thing is, Earth moves
Well, you
with
treat
the
it as
ground.
stationary every time.
No,
You treat it
the
as
thing is,
stationary every time, right?
no. It's like first of all, you're saying that
No?
air needs to be perfectly in sync. No, it doesn't true. It doesn't need to be perfectly in sync, right?
For you
When
to
we are
treat the
landing
Earth
the
as stationary, it would have to be. If you're treating the Earth as stationary,
no,
then the
I mean
atmosphere has to move you in perfect sync with the rotation.
it's
Otherwise,
not
you'll
going
have
to,
a different.
no,
Remember, we started the conversation. I asked you if you ever have to land on a moving surface. Well, for that surface to appear like it's not moving at all eastward, you have to be
Of
moving in
course.
perfect sync eastward with it as you're landing.
But let me tell it to the end, okay? Because I'm trying to let you go, but I'm not
Go ahead.
having a time to. Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
the thing is, it's not like you're saying it's need to be in a perfect sync. You like meaning in a perfect synchronization between the yours, right?
Well, then it would be
That,
a moving surface. If it's not in perfect sync, you said you don't land on a moving surface ever.
but it isn't in a perfect sync, right? It's
Huh?
fine. Sometimes we have winds,
What?
so an air
You
can
said it's
move
not in
across
perfect
the.
sync. You know, winds are different. You
Of
said there would
course.
be two things to deal with. Remember at the beginning, you said landing on a moving surface plus the winds would be two things, and you agreed to that. So you're not landing on a moving surface. You're only landing with winds on a stationary Earth.
Well, the
That's all you have
surface
to deal
is
with.
not, of course, what I mean by that is surface is not moving in relation to the ground, but the plane is moving in relation to the surface, and the forces is applied to the plane. It's a momentum, it's angular and linear momentum, and the air itself. We have a flow of the air that can blow plane left and right. Can have nose wind and a tailwind, and this is why we need to do the corrections. And some planes they are
Yeah, but
okay
see, I
with the
remember I said it was a joyriding pilot, and he has no corrections. So you can't mix up the ground path with the whole idea of being in sync. Because you could just fly wherever you
it's
want, you know it. And you can just fly wherever you want and land
not
wherever you
whatever.
want.
Yeah, of
You
course
could have
we
an
have some
emergency landing
limits.
where you would have no INS system, or you wouldn't have none of that. Like if you're just a joyriding pilot at a Cessna with no mechanical, ground path or any to follow, you could land, but you have to believe that your plane's now moving 500 miles per hour faster than where it took off eastward
No,
as you're
it's not
landing.
about how
Yes, that's
fast.
the claim. That's the globe claim.
No, no, it's not about how fast the plane moves as an absolute speed. It's about how fast the plane moves relative to the runway in the moment of the landing, and how, how so it's not the speed that killing us; it's the sudden stop. So the point
Yeah,
is,
but
if we have an
you'd have to be in perfect sync to treat the Earth as stationary, right?
no, we don't need to account
Well,
for
then you'd
this.
have
We
a
need
moving
to.
ground. The surface would
We're
be
not
moving
going
if
to
you're not
have
in perfect sync.
because we need to have air like that moves like that the speed of the air needs to be and the direction of the air needs to be very close to the speed of the earth if we're talking about the more like upper level model,
Yeah,
and
but
this is not
but
what's
the air is
happening.
not in perfect sync. The air is not in perfect sync, so it couldn't
Uh,
even make your plane in perfect sync.
no, of course it's not in perfect sync, and that's
Well,
fine, and this is why you
then your
need.
plane wouldn't be in perfect
It's
sync because you're
we
in
can
the
have
air.
a sometimes, of course we sometimes we have a little bit of a tailwind, we can have a little bit of a nose wind,
Yeah,
and this
no,
is fine.
we started this off by we made the designation that the winds and the surface moving are two different things. So don't describe that there's a tailwind as if that's some kind of rotational thing. The Earth has to be
It's
perfectly
no it's
stationary for you to. The Earth is either perfectly stationary or you're in perfect sync with the 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation, so you can land as
no
if it's stationary. Yes,
I mean
that's the globe
no
claim.
I need to move. I just need to have my speed, like I need to hold my airspeed so I don't stall, and
Mhm.
yeah, and I need to make a smooth landing. So the last time I
Yeah,
was
on a
landing, it was a
stationary
bounce.
surface, on what seems to you to be perfectly stationary. So there's no rotation difference in your plane compared to the
Of
rotation of the
course,
surface. It has to be
because
in perfect
Earth.
sync, but you're not doing anything for that to happen. You could be flying against the spin and land against the spin, and then you have to believe the air carries you backwards in perfect sync with a 1,000-mile-an-hour
Of course.
rotation. As you're landing and slowing down forwards, all of that is happening in the background. Somehow it's perfect, but they can't claim the atmosphere is in perfect sync, so it would never work, even if it was able to carry your plane
Okay.
backwards.
But I was talking about the frequency, and how I understand that molecules they're trying to, it acts a little bit like a glue, and if we have air close to the ground and the Earth is rotating, this air is sticks to the ground, doesn't have things just like against what air needs to stop, right? It's like it's everything just moves together. Earth and
Yeah,
air,
but you're
everything
saying
just moves
together
together.
as in perfect sync. When you say together, do you mean that it's in
No,
perfect
of
sync
course
and
it's not
making your plane go
no,
backwards in perfect sync? Well, then you have a
it's
rotation
not.
to land on, and you never have to do that.
Yeah, it's not in perfect sync. We have some like this is why,
Don't
of
say when.
course, yeah, but this rotation that you it rotates very slow, and this is forces that
Not
tiny in
slow. It's
comparison.
500 miles per hour faster than where you took off from. If you took off from the pole, it would be 1,000 miles an hour faster eastward than where you took
In
off from.
absolute
You
speed,
have to believe
yes,
your
but
plane is going backwards at 1,000 miles an hour in your little Cessna.
yeah,
Even as you
if we
feel no effects, you feel no headwind, you don't feel any carrying or blowing. In fact, you could have winds going the opposite direction, pushing you
of
faster
course,
westward. So now you have to
yes,
believe that even though the winds are pushing you faster westward, which is the air pushing your plane, you have to also believe the air is making your plane go 1,000 miles an hour backwards, even though you're getting pushed forward by the actual air dynamic wind that you can
well,
sense and detect and
maybe
know is there.
maybe if we measure the speed of the plane in the relation to the globe rotation, then yes. But again, when we fly in the plane, we are not going to account for the global speed against the Earth or against the space
No,
at
you
all,
never have to
because
account
the
for any
first
rotation. Yeah, that's right.
no,
You never have to account for rotation because it's stationary. Otherwise, you would have to
it's
account
not
for
because
rotation
we don't
because
need
the
to
atmosphere
account
is
for
not in perfect sync.
no,
The
it's not
atmosphere is not
because
in
we don't
perfect
need
sync.
to it's not because we don't need to account for the rotation, because we need to account for the air, and the air, so the flow of the air is the main and the most major
Yeah,
force
but the
that
air is not in perfect sync, and the air, as winds, are blowing you the opposite direction. So how can you believe the air is making you go 1,000 miles an hour backwards, even though you have no idea that that's happening? All you know is you're being pushed the opposite direction by the winds, right? Which they consider part of the
wait
air. So they have to say
do we
you're
have
having winds blow your plane westward, but the winds blowing your plane westward are also moving eastward in perfect sync, even though we can't claim perfect sync. We have to say it's perfect sync. And then if someone flies their plane and lands on the earth like it's stationary, they have to believe somehow the air made that happen, even though they had no
Can I ask
idea
you,
there was
can
air
I
moving
ask
them.
you
so
just a
the thing
question?
is give me a second. The thing is, we don't have winds which are blowing 1,000 miles per hour in relation to the earth.
No,
So
but it would have to be carrying you 1,000 miles an hour backwards as you're landing in a different direction, slowing down to like 50 or 100 miles an hour. You have to believe
no,
you're being carried backwards at 1,000 miles an hour because that's how fast the ground is supposedly moving. Otherwise, you'd be landing on a moving surface.
it's going to be moving not in relative to what?
Relative to the speed you started with, right? 0 miles an hour or 500, halfway
Yeah,
there,
but
right? Now you should be moving
what
backwards
forces?
twice as
Okay,
fast, right? And there's no
what
force, there's
what?
no dynamic forces involved at all. You have
Yeah, wait,
no
but during the
accelerometer,
flight,
nothing that's telling you you're going backwards. You just have to
okay,
believe it's happening. You have to believe
okay,
it's perfect,
but
even though they can't claim perfect.
okay, but what forces are plane? What the major force that plane experienced during the flight from point A to point B?
Yeah, what are the measured forces? Only the plane's forward motion is all the pilot ever has to know about. Winds in
No.
any direction, winds in any
So
direction, and your forward velocity. Nothing about eastward
no.
faster is involved.
The thing is, we are moving in the air. So
I know we went
when
through this. It's not in perfect sync. It's not even claimed to be in perfect sync. So even if the air were carrying you backwards at 1,000 miles an hour, they can't say it would be in perfect sync, and you'd still have to land on a moving surface because there's slippage. We have fluid dynamics. Air doesn't have the ability to carry a plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour to begin with. There's no force in the air. You have winds, which are the air pushing your plane, but the atmosphere can't just be pretended to be carrying you without it being a real force of air that's pushing your plane eastward faster, which you would know about if you were the pilot, because that
wait,
would be
I
noticeable.
don't get the point with 1,000 miles per hour and why air needs to
That's what
move
it
at
is at
one.
the equator, right? The claim is that at the equator, you'd have to be moving at 1,000 miles an hour in perfect sync with the eastward tangential velocity so you can treat the Earth as stationary. But there's no force to make that
1,000
happen, and you're
miles
not accounting
per
for it
hour. Okay, but
at the equator.
is
They
this
say it's moving 1,000 miles an hour.
is it like exactly 1,000 miles per hour?
It doesn't matter. We're just averaging at
Does
1,000.
Are you sure? Like, are we sure that is
So
more
it
than
doesn't
1,000
matter what
miles?
the exact number is. Your plane has to be going in perfect sync with the rotation. So if you landed where it
I
happened to
have
be
an
1,000 miles an
analogy.
hour,
Okay.
I have an analogy though. Like, have you ever been in a river, and you know a
Yeah.
river that's just like a 1 foot deep, or just say 2 foot deep, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know those rivers with something you could hold on to underneath, like a rock, or just to stay in one spot and just feel the river flowing. Like you can have your head facing upstream, right? And the
Okay.
river just
Yeah.
flowing over your body. You can feel the force. That's if the earth was spinning, you would feel like that all the time.
yeah, you
I
would have
see.
a noticeable if the air needs to carry your plane sideways or backwards or whatever to keep up with the rotation. There's no way you and your little Cessna that flew from the North Pole are going to speed up to 1,000 miles an hour without your noticing it. That's a dynamic plane. You see, they get away
It's
with it by
wicked.
saying, okay, it's a
I see
kinematic
what
plane
you're
pretty
saying.
much with the
Okay.
conserved momentum,
But
right? But
why?
if you're saying that
But
the plane has to be in perfect sync with 1,000 miles an hour, that's a dynamic plane that
no,
you would
I'm
have
not
to have
saying the
some sense
perfect
of.
thing.
No, that's what that's what the globe claims. I'm criticizing the globe claim, and then the
I see.
excuse they
Yeah.
give that just because the air is thought to co-rotate with the surface, right? Even though they
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
claim
Yeah.
perfect sync, they can't claim perfect sync. They just say
Of
it
course.
co-rotates and act like the pilot can always treat the Earth as stationary, like it's not rotating. But the claim is
They
that it's
try to
rotating and that would never be
separate
in
the
perfect sync.
atmosphere and the wind. You can't separate the atmosphere and the wind. Like they're saying
Yeah,
the river and the currents. The river currents are still the fucking river.
that's
But the way that
dynamically felt.
they try to, like, you can't.
Yeah.
You
I
have to
see.
keep the
Okay.
wind. Wind
Okay.
wind is the atmosphere.
They
I
claim
see.
the
Okay.
birds and the balloons and everything. They just claim that the birds, the balloons, the hot air balloons, the kids' balloons, the planes, the helicopters, the skydivers are just shifted in such perfect sync because they say the air co-rotates, even though they can't claim that it's in perfect sync. They just say
But
it's in perfect sync because the
okay.
air co-rotates, which is just a concept. It's just a wishful concept to cover their ass because the Earth is actually stationary, and they can't claim it's anything but stationary because when
Okay.
you land the plane, you always treat it as stationary, right? So there's no
What?
no surface rotation ever out of sync, which is impossible for the air to do all on its own.
Why it's impossible to air? Can you explain a little bit, but a little bit shorter, if I can ask? Because you are very fleshing it out, and I understand your point, but I don't understand why air cannot correlate with the Earth in the globe.
Well, they don't claim that it's in perfect sync because fluid dynamics would you'd have slippage to begin with, right? You can't have the
Of
whole.
course.
They can't pretend that the whole of the atmosphere is is forcing the plane in one direction. Like what if you had a jet that goes 1,000 miles an hour, right? Now you're flying a thousand
Sorry,
miles an
can
hour
I
against the
interrupt you
wind.
here?
You don't have
Can I?
the dynamic forces within the air, so the friction is not at all enough, or the whatever it is. You can think about it as co-rotating, but you don't have the forces in the atmosphere, and you don't have the perfect sync, so you would never be able to treat the Earth as perfectly stationary.
Okay, can I? I'm sorry. I got your point, but I'm trying to split a lot of what you're saying into the smaller pieces, so it will be easier to discuss. Okay.
All right.
And the thing you're
There
saying
is no
about
Coriolis. Coriolis doesn't exist. I know you're going to talk about it. Coriolis
no,
does
it's
not
not.
exist.
No, I'm not
And
going
well,
to talk about
there's a thing that
Coriolis.
Wittig came in the other night with transverse universe revolving around
No.
the Earth, causing a Coriolis, same force. Coriolis is just a drift. It's just the sun and the pressure and the heat and magnetic fields, in my opinion,
Ah,
are rotating above us.
no, I
But
was
that's
about
in
to ask a
wind. That's for the
question.
wind.
I don't know about a lot of things. I'm not a scientist, but you say that
You're a very nice guy,
hydrodynamics.
by the way.
Oh, all
You seem
right,
like a nice
yeah.
guy.
Oh, say thank you. You too. By the way,
Sorry for
so
being so aggressive. If you knew me, as these guys know, I come in here and talk about planes with these Glovers all the time. and they always just try to like somehow play defense attorney for the idea that the Earth rotates, even though they agree that the atmosphere is not said to be in lockstep, and there would have to be a force within the atmosphere that does that, and the pilot probably should know that he's going backwards at 1,000 miles an hour and landing forwards at a slower speed and landing on what could be a moving surface. I mean, if there was any chance that you'd be out of sync, even slightly, right? They would include in the pilot's manuals, and all of the training would be like, okay, now if you're out of sync with the Earth, you're in trouble because you could crash and kill the people on the plane. So it has to
How
be
can we?
perfectly stationary, and there's no way to make that perfectly stationary unless it's stationary.
Well,
How can we find out from E1 about the latest dual pole model?
I
call
almost
him right
agree
now.
with you. I'm almost agree with you, but I'm not agree with you with your claim that it needs to be in perfect sync. So
Yeah, but you
when
agreed from the
saying
very beginning that if it was winds as well as rotation, you would know you're landing on a rotating Earth as well as dealing with winds, because those would be two different things. We agreed at the very beginning. So
yeah,
if you're not landing on
of course,
if the Earth isn't if the surface isn't moving relative to your plane eastward, right? Then you have to either be in perfect sync and have that vector stay separate from all your forward movements, which is also impossible, and you would have to be
okay.
carried eastward in perfect sync, even though they don't claim perfect sync, or you're just landing on a stationary Earth with the winds that are created by all the dynamics that happen on the stationary Earth.
Well,
What coast
it's
are you
about
on? Perspective. I just want to ask quickly, what coast, what time zone are you in?
I'm
I'm in
now
Chicago.
Chicago.
Talking
Oh,
about.
okay. Chicago. Oh, you're in the same city as Branchot Pearson.
Oh yeah, that's the funniest name that you brought up. I thought
You
you were
don't
going to
know
say Demont.
Branchot?
So, I
Right.
do know who that is. Funny that I know who that is. Isn't that the guy from um, the show with the two guys? What was it called? The guy that was in you know, I know that his best role was in the movie with oh man, what was it called? One of my favorite movies. I can't think of it right now. Got so Brad Patterson. What was the show with him and the other guy, the nerdy guy?
This
You know
guy,
his name?
Branchot, he's a black American guy, and he's like one of those Christians that are hardcore thinking that Jesus is coming real soon. And he's
I don't
like
know who you're
does
talking about.
gematria, and he analyzes the news events, like all the stuff the politicians are doing all the time. And he looks at
Oh,
the
okay.
codes, the colors, the signs, the symbols, the things that they do that can give him like a storyline to where like all of this is heading. And he thinks there's an antichrist as well, and he kind of thinks it's Obama. Yeah.
That's funny. I thought you were going to say Democ at first because Democ's in Chicago.
Oh, is
I'm
he?
not in
Oh,
Chicago.
okay.
I'm outside of Chicago. So yeah, Democ was in
Oh, right.
Chicago. But it's funny you said Branchot Pearson, and I don't even know who that is, and I thought it was this other guy that was old
What a name, eh?
TV show.
Branchot.
I think that's the guy's first name. That's why I was confused, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Um,
There's a lot of
anyway,
meta
so
going on in the communities at the moment, like the David Ikes and the other guy with the emerald tablets, and then the archaics, and they're all having these comebacks and making videos about each other to debunk this and that and refute this and that. And it's like there's wars, channel wars. That's what they are.
really, I haven't paid attention to those guys for a while. They're kind of like alt mainstream.
All over the internet,
Um,
so many wars going on between different factions. It's like
about
there's
flat
going
Earth.
to end up being internet gangs.
What's the controversy over flat Earth?
About ancient history, Tartaria,
Oh, okay,
pyramids,
there it is. Okay.
Anunnaki, whether or not there's spirits, whether or not there are other races, Hollow Earth, all of this stuff that you see on the Gaia TV, like, and then you
Yeah,
get like a independent journalists, independent researchers, and coming together with these TV personalities and sort of clashing, and it's the clash of paradigms. It's all a story. It's just interpretation, and they can interpret 1,000 million different ways.
right. Well, I stopped listening to David Icke and a lot of those guys, of course, when flat Earth came around because they just didn't want to look at it and they were being dumb.
Yeah.
or just trying to save their careers, which actually is pretty smart. But the way that one guy did it was probably the best way to do it. He didn't talk about flat Earth. What was his name? The guy with the oh man, the guy that did the Ubuntu, Ubuntu.
Yeah, that's David Icke.
No, not David Icke. It's a different guy. Cooler
The
guy.
other guy from South Africa. Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name?
What's his name? I forgot his name too. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Tellinger, Michael Tellinger.
Challenger?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Tellinger.
That's the one.
Yeah.
You got it.
He was cool. He talked about it. He talked about flat Earth, and he said he lost some gigs and decided, that if people ask him about it, he'll be honest, but he's not going to make it a platform because.
Hang on, am I getting them mixed up? You're talking about the guy that found Adam's calendar? Is that the guy?
I'm not
sure. Or the guy with the long skulls? Which guy are you talking about?
It kind of looks like a little bit like Ike in a way, but he's more like cooler and for real. He did the Ubuntu. Let me look it up. Anyway,
I should just Google.
Talking about this stuff when we were talking about planes? Why'd you ask about
because it's all intertwined, isn't it? It's not just
I thought you were trying to get one
conspiracy, because they say the Earth is spinning, yet they've got the atmosphere to contend with. We have a thing called friction. We have a thing called tangential velocity. They don't have a model that they could display on an office desk with a ball suspended in the center of a box without touching anything and no strings attached, right? Can they do that, first of all? And then they've got to move it in 5 different vectors, and start spinning it as well. And then they've got to inject an atmosphere onto it with a surface that's not balanced properly, because they say it's not a perfect sphere. If it's not a perfect sphere, it's not balanced properly, right? So you're going to have topographical issues.
The thing is, they don't have to do any of that, Carlos. They don't even try to claim the dynamics, right? They just brush over the idea that the dynamics are not accounted for, right? They just have the kinematics, which is the mathematical and the kinematic concept with all the math that justify the idea that we live on a stationary Earth and we could treat it as stationary in all respects, and everything we use practically has to work with the stationary Earth. Yet the globe is rotating for sure. It just happens to be that everything works out somehow, so the dynamics don't tell you anything different than you're on a stationary Earth, and that's just those dynamics are just put aside, and it's just mathematical.
If you were going to. Yeah, if you just came from that perspective that, okay, just say the Earth's not moving and we have a consistently stable atmosphere which has electromagnetically static electricity, whatever you want to call it, that is interacting with temperature and creating wind, you have to just admit that what you see is what you should expect in this situation. So I don't know why you would start to consider that there was any other dynamics to consider. Not necessary.
Yeah, they can't claim any dynamics. They can't claim, and that's why the planes. What I was about to say to the guy about the planes. I don't know if he's still here. Are you still here, brother? Sorry for getting off track.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I'm here.
The kinematics, they're separating the kinematics. You know the difference between kinematics and dynamics? Have you heard of that before?
No.
Well, the kinematics, like Kepler, about Kepler's orbits, right? Orbital model.
I don't honestly know.
When you get into this topic, right, where you realize maybe just from talking about the planes that you didn't think about it, but wow, either the Earth is stationary or the air made me, such perfect sync with the rotation that I could treat it as stationary somehow, right? Like it's one of those two. And if you think maybe the air moving you in perfect sync, so you could just always treat it as stationary, it sounds a little, far-fetched. You might say, wait a minute, is the Earth actually stationary? And then you would get obsessed with the topic and look into all these things that we've looked into and figured out that they have like a big difference between the mathematical equations and the kinematic concepts. That's just the explanation of everything moving perfectly, right? Because of the claim that there's like the whatever masses that they leave the masses out and then add them back in at the end. So it's really convenient because the masses cancel out, and then they can say, oh, well, it has to be this large and this, from this distance. But none of that is dynamics. The dynamics is the real physical physics that would have to be accounted for in real life, right? You can't just say we're going to have this kinematic concept that the air is it co-rotates with the Earth. That's just a kinematic concept and a claim with no dynamic proof whatsoever, because you can't sense the speed. Your plane doesn't go faster eastward. You just act like it's going eastward faster because the air is thought to be in perfect sync, even though they can't claim perfect sync. So there's a contradiction plus no forces in the air to make your plane do that when you're flying the opposite direction with winds going the opposite direction. Then you have to have this miracle, I'm going backwards still because of this like idea of globe rotation, which isn't happening at all. It's just you have to believe it because we were told we were little that we're on a globe, right? So a lot of pilots, I'm sure, even don't, like yourself, don't think about it as anything but a globe,
I'm
even though
sorry, I'm not a pilot.
nothing about
I'm
flying.
not.
But you said you flew.
Yeah, I fly with the instructor sometimes. I don't have enough money to fly as a
Oh, okay.
pilot.
Well,
I don't have
you've
a
been in a
pilot license.
plane, you've flown enough to know you always treat
Yeah,
the Earth
I landed the plane. I took off. Yeah. I had
Yeah.
like 1 hour
And
and
you never
50
landed
minutes of
on any
flight.
rotation. There was no rotation when you landed. It can't rotate, otherwise you possibly die.
It was bouncy.
Yeah, you can't just say, I'm going to be in perfect sync, and the air is going to make me do that, and I'm going to have faith that the air is going to keep my plane in sync, even though I had westward winds. I just have to have faith that the air is moving eastward in perfect sync with this, and moving my plane in perfect sync so I could treat the Earth as stationary, which is dynamically impossible and laughable when you really think about it. The Earth is just stationary. That's why you can land like it's stationary.
Well, again, it's not needs to be in a perfect thing, because when you're saying perfect, I mean you mean
Don't
that
say winds.
it needs to.
Don't say winds. Winds are different than rotation.
Okay, winds are different than rotation. I see.
Like we started off, if you had to land on a rotating Earth with winds blowing in opposite directions or any direction, you only land on a stationary Earth, but you have to account for winds when you land. If you also had a rotating eastward surface that you had to keep the plane rotating with at 1,000 miles an hour, or the air has to be moving you in perfect sync, sideways or backwards or whatever it needs to be, so you can just land like the Earth is stationary and not worry about the eastward rotation at all. So somehow the magical air has to keep you in perfect sync, or something has to happen, but it could never be in perfect sync anyway, so it doesn't work. See?
Okay, but why? Like, it's not an imperfect thing, but you saw that you were saying that there is a law in hydrodynamics, if I'm correct.
No, dynamics compared to kinematics. Kinematics are just the maths. Like you can make a mathematical equation or just have a concept that says, oh, we're just going to treat the Earth as stationary, even though it's not, right? You could just say things like in a kinematic concept or make an equation that fits what your desired results are, which is a rotating Earth with everything working perfectly without any dynamics, right? We just make it the concept that we're co-rotating enough for people to keep believing we're on a moving Earth. But if Earth were moving, the dynamics would be so crazy because there's a chance you would be out of sync with the Earth and you'd be trained to account for that, or have to, the plane would be made completely differently because you'd have to be able to land on something that's going at a speed different than your plane, and you would never know how fast the Earth is moving. So you would have to like land at a risk every time.
You're saying nothing you're saying is true, man. Like, holy shit, you're fucking wildly off. You're not
the way that you can.
Someone's going to come in and say it's the INS system. Someone's going to say they're following a ground path, and it's the INS system that keeps everything in perfect sync, so they don't have to worry about rotation because there's a mechanical thing on the plane that makes it all perfect. And none of that happens. None of that happens. The atmosphere is not hearing you in perfect sync.
And they use gyroscope. They use accelerometers.
Yeah, they don't have to do that. A joyriding pilot that doesn't, or even a guy that's in an emergency situation and he's got no mechanics to deal with, he just flies the plane and lands like stationary without following a ground path, without following a ground.
And his vision.
What?
It's no change. That's nothing to do with flat Earth or low Earth. You just use the horizon.
No, if the Earth were moving, he'd have to land on a moving surface, is my point. We've been through this, you and I, before. I don't want to go through with you because you're
No,
just
that's not
completely
true.
you're completely convinced of something that's impossible, and you're just going to say
It's
it's
like
not true and
jumping
claim
inside
that
the
I don't know
moving
what I'm talking
train,
about.
and
It's
jumping
different.
inside the moving
You're going
train, and
from
you're
if you're
expecting it
going
that
from a
it's gonna leave your
500
feet,
mile per hour latitude. We're not talking
right?
about conserved momentum, guy. You conserve
Yes,
momentum at a
that's
500
what
mile
we are
per hour
talking.
latitude. Now you fly. Listen, this is the scenario. If you want to talk to me about this,
Mhm.
I already laid this out. The guy's a joyriding pilot. He's got no ground path to correct for. He's got no gyroscopes and no INS on the system. Nothing. He's just flying wherever he wants. But he ends up going west southwest against the spin, and ends up flying through the equator, where now the plane has to be going eastward and a tangential velocity that's perfectly in sync with the Earth. So you can treat the Earth as stationary when you land at a random spot. He always treats it as stationary. That means the plane has to be going twice as fast eastward to be in sync with the Earth. And the atmosphere has no dynamic to do that. The pilot never corrected for any ground paths, so he's just a joyriding pilot. And he still treats the Earth as stationary because there's no dynamics to make the plane go twice as fast eastward when he's landing in the opposite direction with winds blowing westward as well, right? So you can't just pretend
So
it's
you're
in
saying
sync
the
because
pilot does not use
so
airspeed when he's
the
flying?
co-rotating air can't claim to be in perfect sync. Fluid
Hello,
dynamics doesn't allow you to claim
I
perfect sync.
asked you a
The
question.
air that you're
Hello.
talking about. You just mentioned the
No,
air,
I'm not
right?
talking about air. I said, does the pilot use airspeed when he is flying?
Airspeed, right? That's what
Yeah.
you talking about the airspeed. That's what I said.
Yeah, exactly.
The
I was
airspeed.
talking
Yeah.
about
So if he
yeah.
uses
The
airspeed, and if the airspeed moves
airspeed is not in perfect
and if
sync.
he uses, no, it's
The
not.
airspeed's
But
not
he
in
still
perfect
uses
sync.
the airspeed,
Right.
right?
Well, right. So the airspeed, that means the air would have to carry the plane in perfect sync with the rotation so the guy can treat it as stationary, as he just
No,
said he always does.
it
Yes.
doesn't. No, it
Well, it
doesn't.
doesn't because the Earth isn't rotating. It doesn't have to do any of that. He just lands like a stationary because it's stationary.
No,
There's no other
if
way to get
if
around
the
it.
air is not in sync, that's called wind, right? If you have wind, it has to
That's the
compensate for that.
claim. Yeah. So you're saying the not wind when there's no wind. That's when the air is in perfect sync. So the not wind carries the
Yes,
plane in perfect sync. So when there's
yes.
no wind,
And if it's
the
not, then he
pilot's
has
being
to.
carried in
If he
perfect sync.
doesn't, then that's what you call
But
wind,
now he's got
right?
westward winds,
Holy
right?
shit,
What are
you're
the
yapping.
westward
Can you
winds?
let me like get a word in?
Listen,
You're like talking
yeah, I
24/7.
know what you're about to say. I'm
Fuck.
sorry. I jumped the gun because I've been through this conversation with
No, you
you
don't
and
know
many
what
other
I'm
people.
supposed to say.
You're saying the air speed is going to keep the plane in perfect sync, and the air speed is only in perfect sync when there's no winds. So now the no winds is what keeping the plane in perfect sync. But if he has
He
Yeah.
westward
doesn't
winds
get it,
And he
perspective.
pushing in the
can't land
opposite
He
if
doesn't
the
get
direction,
wind
it.
is not in sync. We don't have wind indicators at the airport.
yeah. Well, when I started this, the guy
Okay,
that
so then
I
he
was just
knows if
talking
it's
to
not in
before you
sync,
got
and he
here. Hold on.
compensates for that, right?
Yeah, that would
or
be
they can
amazing.
just
If
go
he had to
around.
do that, if
Yeah,
he
he does that.
compensated, and he knew if
Don't
the
say it's
pilot,
amazing. That's
hey,
what he does. Don't say it's
listen, we
amazing.
got
That's
a
what they
guy
do.
Okay,
here.
I want to ask this
I
question.
was just
Yeah,
talking.
whatever.
Wait, listen,
I
wait,
don't
hold
know.
on, wait.
Like you're
Let
just
me respond to
talking
what you
more
just
is
said.
not helpful.
The guy was just. You missed the first part of the conversation where we were talking to a pilot that realizes that the surface moving, right, and the winds are two things to deal with if you're landing. And he only dealt with winds. He always treated the Earth as stationary because either the air made him in perfect sync, even though fluid dynamics doesn't allow the air to be in perfect sync, and there could be winds blowing him in the opposite direction, and there's no dynamic forces of the atmosphere to carry his plane 1,000 miles an hour eastward as he's slowing down to land in the opposite direction. None of that happens because he always treats it as perfectly stationary, and the
No,
atmosphere
he
with winds
doesn't.
blowing in the opposite direction would never make the plane in perfect sync.
Yeah. No, first of all, you have the momentum of the airplane. So as long as your
Okay,
momentum is kept, right? You need to
that's only 500. Starts with
huh?
500, he has to land with 1,000.
No,
He starts with a
no.
500 mile per hour conserved momentum. Then he flies against the spin
No, you
towards the
use
equator, where
when
the plane has to be
then
going 1,000 miles
that's
an
when
hour
you only
eastward.
when you yeah, okay. So that's only when you
Yeah,
land
1,000 miles an hour
and
at the
when you
equator.
can I finish a sentence, please?
Go ahead.
Okay. So that's only when he lands and when he takes off, when he need to worry about the ground moving beneath his
Well, that's what I'm talking
wheels,
about when he
right?
lands. That would be the most
Yes.
critical part when he
So when
lands. He
he's
has to
in
be going
air,
at
does he
perfect
care
sync.
about? He cares about where the land is in terms of like he has to go a certain place. But when he is flying, right, he only cares about the airspeed. in terms of the speed, right?
Right,
So
but the air's not in
if
perfect
it's
sync.
not in if the, yes, but that doesn't matter.
No, it's
He
not.
doesn't care about
It's
that.
not even claimed to be in perfect sync. There's fluid dynamics, so the atmosphere would have a
Yeah,
lot of
that's what I
slippage.
said.
If the
Sorry,
Earth
that's
was
it's my
rotating,
point.
you'd have
Hello,
enough friction at the
I'm not
very
done.
surface, right? But you
Holy
wouldn't have
shit.
enough
Okay,
friction for the
whatever.
whole of the atmosphere.
I
You
don't know
can't
why
have the
you're
whole of the
talking all the time.
atmosphere pretended to be in perfect sync because of the idea that it co-rotates. You can't just take that idea and say that it makes the plane in perfect sync. And the plane has to be in perfect sync for him to treat it as stationary. The Earth is never ever moving eastward faster than
No,
the plane
it
is
doesn't.
when
You
it
said
lands.
it's not in
It's
perfect sync
stationary
because
when it
there's wind,
lands.
right?
Otherwise, you're fucked.
Sorry, hello.
Huh?
You said it's
Go ahead.
not in perfect sync because there's wind. So
No,
why
there's
do you
wind
say
on a
you have to
stationary
treat it
Earth
like it's? So why are you saying you have
because
to
the
treat it
only
like it's
way
in?
for the
Sorry, why does it have
because
to
the
treat
only
it like it's in? Sorry, why does it have to treat it like it's in perfect sync when when it's not clearly because there's wind
because the
and
winds are
that's fine.
different than rotation. I established with the guy I'm talking to before you got here that the winds moving the plane as he's landing, as well as the rotation, would be two things, right? So the rotation can't be something he's dealing with. It has to be stationary and then have the winds to account for. Winds and rotation are always conflated on your side of the argument to keep you convinced, if you're actually convinced, or just to try to excuse the idea that the pilot always treats the Earth as perfectly stationary, right? So the winds would have to either push him to be in perfect sync, but they don't claim it's the wind. They just say it's the air, right, as a whole, moving all the birds and the balloons and the helicopters and everything, the clouds, all moving and shifting in perfect sync with the rotation as if, in quotes, it's stationary, which is a kinematic concept
It
only
doesn't have
with
to be
no
in perfect
dynamics.
sync.
It would
Hello,
have to be for him to treat it as
it's not.
stationary. The
Sorry, it's
winds, the
not in
winds, the
perfect.
winds
It's
are
not
different.
in.
The winds, the winds do not
Yes.
make him out of sync. The winds can only push the plane
Sorry.
over a stationary Earth. If you had a
Holy
rotating
shit.
Earth as well as winds, that would be
I
two
don't know.
things. Do not
You're
conflate
like a
winds with rotation.
meta or something. I'm
Do
not
not
conflating
conflate.
those two.
You were about to say
I'm just
that he
talking
doesn't
about.
have to be in perfect sync because the winds are pushing him sideways, right?
Dude,
Holy
you're gonna
That's
have to
what you
let
were about to
somebody
say.
You have to
speak.
take a chill
You got
pill.
to take
Like
a
holy
breath, man.
I'm
shit, man!
sorry.
Like
Go ahead.
nobody is getting in anywhere. Like I can't fucking say a
Yeah,
word
because
without
I've
you
been through
speaking.
this so many times, and I've been through it with
Then,
you, and you were
then
about to
monologue
say
in a different room. If
what
you
I thought.
want
But
to have a
go ahead.
conversation with yourself, you can move into a different room and talk to yourself.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Don't act like you have a conversation with me when you're not.
Yeah, but just go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So we are talking about an airplane when it leaves, right? And when he leaves, he doesn't care about the rotation of the Earth. He only cares about the wind speed, right? That's the only thing he cares about at this point. And when
Airspeed, to be
he's going to
precise.
and airspeed,
So,
yeah. That's what I say
yes.
by
Yeah, just
wind, right? I
as if it
say he
was a
only cares about airspeed.
stationary
That's
Earth.
literally the
Well,
only thing
you
an air
should,
pilot cares
yeah,
about. If the
we
wind is not
Exactly.
in sync,
Hey,
he don't care
whoever's
about
talking,
that,
let him talk.
right?
Let him continue. Go ahead. Yeah, he doesn't care
Yeah.
about the
No,
When
rotation
he
because there's no rotation. Either he doesn't care about rotation because there's no rotation, or somehow he's in perfect sync and he doesn't have to care for the rotation because he's in perfect sync
if there
somehow.
is
There's
rotation,
no
you say
dynamic.
he's gonna build up speed until like there's like 1,000 miles per hour. That's literally impossible because the airplane has to follow the fucking wind and the air of the atmosphere.
That's what I'm
He has
saying.
no other
Impossible. You're right.
option, right? No, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
impossible.
impossible.
No,
Yeah, that's what
sorry,
you
it
said.
is impossible for him to. It's literally physically impossible for the airplane to move faster than what the winds allowed him to.
yeah,
And
but
if the wind
the problem
and
is
if the wind follows the air's rotation, then the airplane is gonna also follow the air's rotation. It's just no other way.
No, the winds can go the opposite direction of the rotation. The winds can be pushing him westward, and you have to believe it's going faster eastward.
But unfortunately, I think your sense of scale is off because you're treating the air as though it's this blanket, and the Earth is dragging underneath this still blanket without considering that the Earth has texture, the air is rather viscous, and if there's a 5
Yeah, even
mile
if it
an
was viscous,
hour
it has
difference,
to be
before
perfect.
you interrupt me, if there's a
Does
5
not to be
mile hour
perfect.
difference between the rotation of the Earth, the difference will be that 5 miles. So when the Earth's rotating at 1,040 and the air's going at 1,035, you split the difference. It's a 5 mile an hour wind. It doesn't have to be in sync for it to. It doesn't have to be stationary to to have a wind.
Okay, well, you just got here, and I already went through this a few times. The wind pushing the plane sideways and the Earth rotating are two different things. And the guy I was talking to, who's a pilot, and has landed the plane as if it's perfectly stationary, and agreed that it would be different if there was an eastward rotation you have to keep the plane moving with, as well
No,
as
I
deal
was
with
not
wind
agreeing
pushing
to
him in
that.
any
Sorry.
direction. The winds
Sorry.
conflated with the Earth rotation are how you mentally convince yourself that it's happening. You can't just claim
No.
that the winds are the same thing as rotation. They're not. There'd be two things to deal with. Just like an aircraft pilot. An aircraft pilot has to deal. Aircraft pilots have to be trained to deal with the drifting surface of the boat, as well as winds pushing him in opposite directions. Right. So he has to be trained to do that. Regular pilots are just told to treat the Earth as stationary because it's stationary. That's the truth. It has to be stationary.
So when the airplane leaves the ground, does he have to? Let's say if there is no wind, does the airplane have to care about or worry about what the ground is doing beneath it?
No, because
that's
it's
only when it's
stationary.
going to land, right? No. Even on a rotational Earth, let's say the airplane leaves the rotational Earth. Does it have to
500
care
miles,
about?
That's the 500 mile mark, right?
Why does it need to care about the speed of the ground beneath him when the airplane is in the air?
Because of a tangential velocity gradient. Because there's a tangential velocity gradient of 1,000 miles an hour.
No,
to
what
0
will
miles
happen
an hour
if will the airplane crash
That would be a
if that
variable
happens?
that he doesn't account for.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. You're not understanding what I'm asking you. You're answering something else.
Go ahead.
Will the airplane crash if it doesn't like care about the ground?
Well, if the Earth were rotating, it would crash. But since the Earth is not rotating, he doesn't have to worry about the rotation.
Why would it crash? Why would it crash? Why would it crash?
Because the eastward tangential velocity at the equator is 1,000 miles an hour, and the plane would have to be moving at exactly 1,000 miles an hour eastward, even if it meant that his plane would be going backwards, right? And he's flying forward and slowing down westward at some angle. He's trying to land at a westward angle, right? He's facing against the spin, and you have to believe the air is carrying the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
Which is ridiculous. Go ahead.
The viscous air at latitude A might be 490 miles per hour, but the tangential wind speed at the equator might be 1,020. So you just subtract the difference between the latitudes, and you know your airspeed. It's not
you can do that mathematically. No, mathematically you can do that, but it's not dynamics. That's kinematics versus dynamics. The dynamics say the air could be slipping against, out from that you have jet streams that are moving faster than the supposed rotation. So the air is not even claimed to be in perfect sync or even close to in sync. There's jet streams that go 200 miles per hour faster than the supposed rotation, or just 200 miles an hour, which is what we experience and what the dynamics actually work out to be over a stationary Earth. If the Earth were rotating, all that would be thrown off. You'd have to make sure the plane was in perfect sync, or the air would have to magically do it for you, even though the air is not even said to be in perfect sync.
Why does it need to be in perfect sync? I don't understand. What happens if the ground was beneath it? Nothing happens.
Deals with a stationary Earth.
The only thing that's going to happen is going to drift away from the current position, right? You're not hearing what anybody else is saying.
If there's winds and rotation, you can't conflate winds with rotation.
Sorry, you're not answering the question. You're not tracking what I'm saying at all.
You're asking me why he would have to worry about it. You're asking me why he would have to worry about it because the Earth's rotation.
What happens? What happens if the Earth rotates beneath the airplane's wings? What's going to happen to the airplane?
That never happens. The Earth is always stationary. That's the point.
Yeah. No. Sorry, it's a hypothetical in your world, obviously. Sorry. Okay, so I can't just dismiss your argument because I say, well, the Earth is rotating, so I should just dismiss your hypothetical, right? I'm not doing that.
No, the hypothetical is that you have to have a dynamic claim. You don't have a dynamic claim. You have winds that are the dynamics.
No, I have an hypothetical about
the dynamics of the air are winds. That's the dynamics.
That doesn't
of
happen
air.
because the Earth isn't flat. So I can just dismiss that, right? See how that you cannot talk like that.
No, you have to actually have a claim. I claim it's stationary. That's why a pilot can treat it as stationary.
But it's not stationary, so it's wrong.
The pilot treats it as stationary. We just had a pilot here just tell us that he landed a plane as if it's stationary and deals with wind.
I mean,
He
I
doesn't
don't
have
know
to
what
deal with
I'm talking
rotation
to.
and
Like,
wind. So your opinion
the
means
fuck is
nothing
this?
compared to the pilot that I talked to.
No,
Sorry,
I
but
know I
again,
probably know physics better than him because I went to
I'm not
engineering
the
school.
pilot.
Well,
I'm not the
you can do the
pilot.
mathematical equations to just subtract the amount that would be needed, and you can pretend the plane just is somehow in perfect sync, so he can treat it as stationary. You can
It
do the
doesn't have to
mathematics
be
and
like
just subtract it
clearly you're not
like the
understanding
guy
what
was
I'm
saying.
saying.
That's
You're
different.
not
That's
understanding
kinematics.
what I'm saying.
Dynamics are not accounted for.
Hello.
You keep saying that, and then you ask
Holy
the same
shit.
question. Go ahead.
You're not
Go ahead and
understanding
say
what
what
I'm
you're saying.
saying.
Just as
You're
long as you
not
don't conflate
understanding.
winds.
I cannot say
Okay,
anything because you're
say whatever you
talking.
want. Just don't conflate winds with rotation, and we're all good. Go ahead.
Okay. So don't then you you need to listen to what I'm saying, right? So what I'm saying is that you have wind you have rotation. The Earth is rotating underneath the wings of the airplane, right? And the airplane is flying in like a certain direction. It's flying in this certain direction.
West southwest.
And
Let's
the
make it
wind is
against the spin, but towards the equator.
yeah.
West southwest.
Yeah, he can fly. Let's say he fly from. Let's say he fly from. He's an equator and he flies southwards, right? So he carries with him like 1,000 miles per hour. And then when he reaches the south or the north pole, he would supposedly be at zero. He would be at 1,000 miles per hour, right?
No, at the equator it'd be 1,000. Let's say he goes from the pole to the equator, where the
Yeah.
plane would have to get 1,000 miles an hour
Okay.
faster eastward.
Okay. Then
What
the Earth,
happens then?
then
How does the
it would
plane go
rotate
faster
1,000
eastward
miles
without the
per
pilot
the
having a
hour.
ground path?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no
Okay, that's
correction.
fine.
The
That's
pilot
fine.
has
That's
no
fine. You can
ground path.
change it. I don't care. I don't care. It's
Okay.
my point, right? I don't
That's
care.
what I say. West
So,
southwest, and he's got no ground path
sorry,
to correct
I
for.
don't
He's
care.
got
It's
no
my.
gyroscope.
Can I finish my point? What the fuck?
I thought you
I
were
haven't
allowing
even
me to
laid
finish.
in the
Hold on,
grounds, and you're
guys.
changing it, and you're fucking
I
stealing
thought
it.
you were allowing me
Bullshit.
to. If you don't
Hey,
want, if you
guys.
don't want me to
No.
make it the way I started with, go ahead.
As a listener, to try
Oh
and
my
figure out what the heck
lord.
you guys are talking about, is it okay if you guys kind of moderate yourselves?
Yeah, we should.
I'm
I'm
trying.
sorry, it's my fault.
I'm trying to just say something, man. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay.
Go ahead.
So you have an airplane. It's at the South Pole, and then it moves towards the equator. The ground will move at 1,000 miles per hour beneath the airplane's wings, right? Do you agree with me that would happen, right?
No, I think it's stationary, and that's why he never has to worry about rotation. But if you think it moves 1,000 miles an hour eastward
No.
with the rotation, how does that happen?
Okay, if you cannot understand on hypothetical, like then I can't help you, right? Like,
Okay, if it
you
was a
cannot
globe,
understand,
if it was a globe, yes.
if I
it
can
was a
draw a
globe,
picture
I
of
get the
something that's not
hypothetical.
real, and you say, well, this
the
isn't real,
globe,
so I don't understand it, then I don't know
well,
what I
but see,
can
I
do.
thought it was a trick
hang on one
question.
sec.
I thought it was a trick question because the globe doesn't
No.
claim that the Earth rotates 1,000 miles an hour beneath the plane. The globe just claims that the plane's always in perfect sync. That's what the globe
Yeah,
claim is.
No,
hang on one
no.
second.
I'm saying hypothetically, if there is no wind or air or something, he doesn't correct for the rotation, right?
Okay, so then he's got
I'm just
1,000
trying
miles an
to
hour
understand
below.
what you're saying.
Well, the plane would be the ground would be moving faster at the equator, so the plane has to be moving faster eastward with the ground, and there's nothing to account for that. That's my point.
Yeah, so a guy,
Yes.
when you're asking, when you're posing that hypothetical,
Yeah.
New Perspective is trying to respond to it, but
No, he changed it, and his response was the Earth is stationary, so that doesn't happen. Well, he's not
No, I'm saying
engaging
the
with the
Earth is stationary.
hypothetical.
The only way.
I didn't ask
My
if it
point,
was
real
real.
quick,
I said
one sentence, real
hypothetically,
quick.
if the Earth is rotating, this must happen, right? And then he
Yeah,
says it
Okay, so
doesn't
why are
happen
you?
in real
I
life.
couldn't understand why
Hang on
you
a
would
second.
start with that scenario. I thought you were digging yourself a hole by saying that the Earth is rotating toward underneath the plane at 1,000 miles an hour. How are you going to continue
It
with
would
that?
if there was no. I would
Yeah.
agree with you if there was no wind. If there was no wind, and you just let's say there is no air, you just remove air, all dynamics that push the airplane around. Like there's nothing, no like fucking what do you call this jet winds, nothing to push the airplane around.
Let's just say there's no wind. What would happen if there's no wind?
Aim the airplane towards the equator and just fly due north from South Pole. It's going to move. It's going to when it takes off, it's going to be like obviously going to have a speed northbound, but it's also going to be like a rotational speed that's going to pick up underneath the wings of the airplane, correct?
How does that happen is the question. Where are the dynamics to make the plane go faster east? What happens
hang
there?
on.
But
It has
the air,
engines.
You got winds. You got
the-
winds pushing it
Is that-
westward.
yeah,
If there's
No, I
westward winds,
removed the air. Please, you're not hearing what
Oh.
I'm saying. I just told you I removed the air just to make it simpler.
Well, hang on one
It's a
second.
hypothetical.
Hang on one second. As a listener trying to listen, you're trying to remove air from an airplane flying, and you're also trying to
It's a
invoke
hypothetical.
physics. Right? But
Yeah,
you
'cause
can't
To
do
understand the
hypothetical
physics.
and still have physics involved. When you're trying to invoke lift and use an airplane, there has to be air involved in that.
No, it doesn't.
What's
It
up,
doesn't.
Sugar Cookie?
In physics, you can remove air in physics. It's no problem. It's simpler.
Long time no see, bro.
Okay,
It's simpler without air.
But you can't have an airplane flying without the concept of with physics.
I know. That's why it's an hypothetical. You can also not fly
Why would you use a
without air on Earth
hypothetical with
because
no
the
air?
because the
Just
Earth
keep it to
is
real life.
air, right? It's a hypothetical.
Just
If
keep
you
it to
don't understand
reality.
what that is, I don't know. Like,
Oh yeah, but what's your point in making the hypothetical? Are you going to compare it to the reality? And
I can get to
the air
it,
makes
but if you don't understand
Go
the
ahead.
hypothetical,
Let him
it's
talk, Sugar
pointless.
Cookie. I can totally get the hypothetical. I'm with you.
Okay. So then what would so then you understand what would happen with the airplane with the hypothetical?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Continue your hypothetical.
Okay. So what
Let him talk,
could you
though.
tell
Let him
me what
talk.
happens with the airplane? Could you tell me?
No, wait. You're asking me questions now? You want me to talk after saying that you wanted to talk? Just do your whole thing.
Yes.
Don't ask questions. Make your whole scenario from start to finish with the hypothetical. You won't
So
be
if you don't, so
let me give it a go. Can I give it a go?
Okay.
Let him do the whole
guys,
thing.
I think more of us should
This
jump
is so
in
fucking
here.
weird. This is the weirdest conversation
plane-
I've ever had.
If the plane is ballistic and hypothetically just going from the South Pole to the equator, it won't stay along the same line of longitude because there's no air dragging it to keep up more or less with that latitude. That's my suspicion from your hypothetical.
Correct. It's exactly what that
Right.
is.
So
Thank you.
what's your point about the hypothetical? What's your point?
You can make up whatever you want if it's hypothetical. But
Why did he make the hypothetical? You usually do the hypothetical to make a point. And I would use your hypothetical to say, well, the air has to be moving in perfect sync so the pilot gets treated as stationary, no matter what your hypothetical says about no air. You still have to have a perfect in sync atmosphere, which doesn't happen in reality.
Well, it sure seems to me if you're having a hypothetical with an airplane flying, you would still have to have air.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be in perfect sync at all. It can be an additional 5 knots or less than 5 knots. Like when the tangential velocity of the ground, when you're 100 miles out of sync, when the tangential velocity of the ground is 500 and the tangential velocity of the air is 505, that's a 5-knot wind on a rotating globe.
Yeah, but
that can't happen.
No matter what, do not conflate the Earth rotation with winds because they're two different things. We just established that. If an aircraft pilot has to land on a surface that is moving, as well as deal with winds in any direction, that's two things for an aircraft pilot to deal with that regular pilots don't have to deal with. And 5 miles an hour is just.
You guys are talking over each other.
Listen, it could be 50 to 100 miles an hour.
You're drawing a wrong conclusion out of what I say. So you're twisting what I say and making a wrong conclusion what I say. I'm not conflating the Earth with air with Earth spin because the air is going slightly faster than the Earth spin or slightly slower. You didn't pay attention to the plus or minus 5-knot wind, did you?
Hold
but
on.
if you have the wind going in the opposite direction of the rotation, you're not going to be able to keep the plane going eastward if you have westward winds, right? There's a contradiction
relative to the Earth, it's only a 5-knot difference.
What if it's 50 miles an hour?
When hot air,
how do you know it's not going to be more than 5 miles an hour?
In the eastward direction,
Anvil, you're interrupting. How in the world did you take over a guy's argument?
Yeah, and Anvil, you're just saying 5 miles an hour to make it seem like it's plausible, right?
Is making a straw man out of his argument, and I understand where he's going, and I'm
Yeah.
attempting to
You
explain
understand
the
exactly
difference
what I was saying
between.
perfectly. And
Yeah, but
I'm just saying
Anvil,
perspective have
you didn't
is
hear me say
clueless
that
about what
you
I'm
had a
saying.
concept, right?
So it's
A
fine.
difference in you can have the mathematics and you can just subtract the amount or pretend it's only 5 miles an hour different, but it could be 50 or 100 miles an hour different. You have to depend on the concept of the air moving you sync or in perfect sync. And the only way for him to treat it as perfectly stationary, it would have to be perfectly in sync, even if there's westward winds pushing him the opposite direction of what he'd have to correct for to land on a moving surface as if it's stationary. So you can't have both. You can't have your cake and
If
eat it too.
there's a westward wind, then it's not in perfect sync. You're saying the word perfect
It's
sync
different.
plus air, which means it's not in perfect lockstep. The
I'm
extra
talking about with the
5 miles
eastward
an
rotation.
hour comes
That's
from
what I
the
said
high pressure
earlier.
system and the low pressure system, the cold temperature and the warmer temperature driving the air faster at that particular location in addition to the rotation of the Earth.
How does that
Yeah, but
address
there's a chance with all of that that
air?
you could be out of
Pretend
sync
there's no
when
air
you land.
movement. How does
It
that
doesn't have
address
to
the
Yeah,
be
if
no
you have a
air?
perfect in
50 mile an hour wind, right? If you have a 50 mile an hour wind going against the opposite direction, then you're not going to be in sync with the runway you were trying to line up with that's still moving eastward. You can't have the plane just carried in perfect sync and then deal with winds in all directions as well. You have that constant rotation of 1,000 miles an hour that the plane would have to stay eastward with in that vector, completely independent of your forwards motion, as well as completely independent of the winds blowing him in the opposite direction at any time when he's landing. So there'd be all kinds of dangerous situations going on if the Earth were rotating because the plane is never going to be perfectly moving eastward as well as wherever it wants to without being affected by that vector of 1,000 miles an hour that it would have to be. You could pretend 5 miles an hour wind is the same thing. No, it could be 50 to 100. The jet streams go 200 miles an hour faster than the supposed rotation. So thinking
We're
that the
not
plane's just
landing our
perfectly in
planes in
sync
jet
because of air
streams.
is
If the
stupid,
runway east to
laughable.
west has a north to south wind, you'd land in the direction of the wind and change runways.
There's very, very
You
rarely are there north to south
don't get
winds.
it. You don't get it. That you would have to move in perfect sync, and the pilot always just treats it as stationary. He can't just assume he's in perfect sync. He just can only be landing on a surface that's not moving at all. Otherwise, the plane would have to be carried by the air with winds going in the opposite direction, eastward, with the surface of the Earth at exactly 1,000 miles an hour, so
They
he can
don't
deal
get
with
it, man.
winds and land
They're
at the
trying
same
to.
time.
Additionally, you would have to negate the whole idea of what is it? Conservation of momentum.
Well, yeah, it'd be 500 miles an hour he starts with, but that would be gone. Like by the time you got to the equator, you wouldn't have the 500 miles
Yeah.
an hour eastward,
Yeah,
plane moving thing, and
the issue is
there's no dynamics to that anyway. That's just a concept that it's a
the,
sequence that's
the
off.
the air is slightly viscous. It grips on the textures of mountains. It gets pushed by high and low
I
pressure
agree.
systems.
I
It
agree
gets
with that.
pushed by
Now, that's
Air
enough.
can rip
cold and warm
mountains.
pressures.
Yeah.
So
How can you correct for that?
What,
Like you
air
just said,
gripping
it's impossible to
mountains?
correct for wind.
You're
Yeah,
saying
but the
air
air doesn't
grips
move only
mountains.
eastward. The air pushing the plane in any direction is a wind,
Yeah.
right? So the
How can it
westward winds are
possibly
the
correct
air pushing the
himself?
plane. You
This
can't
would be
just pretend
impossible.
the air is carrying the
it,
plane eastward
yeah,
faster without
it,
any
it,
dynamics. Just the
it's
mathematics.
it's a sort of psychological flaw for you to think of air as a blanket over a rotating like
Don't straw man me. I never said blanket.
merry-go-round,
What are you talking
because
about?
that's not to scale. And so when you say the words 1,000 miles an hour, you imagine at the equator that the wind's going 1,000
Oh,
miles an hour past the
no,
ping pong ball
the globe
in your
claim
mind.
is the surface is moving 1,000 miles an hour. I'm just talking about the globe claim. They say the surface is moving 1,000 miles an hour, so a plane taking off from the North Pole would have to be going
Relative to what?
eastward dynamically in perfect sync at 1,000 miles an hour. That's the globe claim,
Yeah,
not my claim.
the speed is relative, and the speed is
So
like twice as slow as the hour hand on a regular clock. Saying the word
that's
a
only if
thousand
the
miles an
clock, if
hour,
the Earth were as big as the clock, right? The hour hand would be
yeah,
still moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Just because you compare it to the
yeah,
relativity of a clock that's small doesn't make it a slow speed. It's still 1,000 miles an hour for that hour hand. It makes it no difference if you compare it to a watch or a clock that moves twice as slow because it takes less time, because it takes so much time to go around. It would be slow if it was a clock, but the Earth is not a clock. It's got the diameter. That means that the tip of that clock hand would be moving at 1,000 miles an hour. It doesn't make it any slower because you it's twice as slow as the hour hand.
And the mass of the Earth is taking all that atmosphere and making it grip and viscous towards the
It
Earth.
doesn't
So
grip
as it
to a
rotates,
mountain.
it may not be
they
in
don't
It does not grip to
They
anything.
know fluid dynamics doesn't allow you to claim lockstep atmosphere. They
What do you
know
mean by
this. You
grip?
know this.
Can you explain what you mean by grip? Air gripping things?
Viscosity.
in the
And
same
the pilot would know. The pilot in the Cessna would know if his plane's going 1,000 miles an hour eastward when he got to the equator. You can't say the dynamics would be
All questions in
unknown
these
to
rooms are
the
to
pilot that's
perspective,
in
by
a
the
little
way.
plane going that
Nobody else
fast
can
eastward.
answer.
Air gripping things,
Go ahead.
please continue with the air gripping things explanation.
Yeah,
He's going to say molecules.
like the textures of mountains and valleys across the globe is much bigger than like an air compressor going over a ping pong ball, or
All I'm doing it. All I'm asking
being
is
interrupted through my answer.
Yeah, Ginger, let him go.
you're not answering the question, so I just want to make sure I
Sugar cookie.
clarified it correctly.
Oh, he was trying to
What do you
clarify.
think your question is? And then I'll answer it. And don't interrupt me
Yes.
if you don't think I'm not answering it.
Explain grip.
Go ahead. Hey, I don't think this needs to be adversarial.
Yeah, it's the same
Let him talk.
reason
Let him finish.
like why golf balls with divots in them go through air faster than perfectly smooth balls. Like they figured out that the air grips and they had to put the divots in so that the air would circulate and avoid that friction.
Okay, well that's different than a mountain. When
Not
you
really,
say gripping
because
air, well, the mountain is stationary, right? It's part of the Earth.
Yeah. And the plane, like he said, is aerodynamic. So if you're in a plane going against
relative to
you're
you,
flying through
as
that, right?
you rotate, your belly button doesn't move. Like you can rotate, and relative to you, your belly button is move. But relative
but
to other
relativity doesn't
things, you
answer
are
all this.
moving.
There's dynamics. There's
But does the
dynamics you're not
air
accounting for. You can't
does
think
the
of it
air
as
So
grip
relative in
my
that
belly
way.
button while I turn around in a
when
circle?
if you were as big as a planet, atmosphere would stick to that round belly, and as you spin, the skin texture you have,
Well,
which would be as large as mountains, if not bigger, would have an effect on that air that is being pulled towards your body because of the massive or density of your body. So
what the
Why
depth
don't you
of
just
your
talk
belly
about
button?
planes? We were talking about planes. Keep it to planes. Don't worry about your belly.
Yeah, that sounds very imaginative.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to explain Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, it's weird. Talking about my belly
but
button.
you're putting
Yeah,
like
and your whole
a
body,
different
your whole
scale.
spine, and everything is turning around its axis.
But
Yeah, but
there's also one aspect that you never address, and you're saying, well, it moves from south to north, right? We could say that it does. Let's imagine a trip of an airplane flying from south to the equator, for example. It also takes time to move in this direction. So I don't know if you have calculated how much like change in velocity it needs to do to catch up with this speed that it need to
Well, that's
have.
why making a joyriding pilot, he's got no ground path to catch up with, right? He's going west southwest against the spin
So,
with no aim whatsoever. He's just going all over the place, and he still treats the 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation as if it's stationary, which would be impossible if it was actually rotating, because the air is not going to make him perfectly in sync. So he can treat the Earth as perfectly stationary.
yeah, that's true.
You
The
can
air is not
pretend that
making, but it's still able to correct for air even
and
if
winds
it's
are
not
not the
in
same.
perfect sync, right? The air is
Winds are
not in
different
perfect
than the
sync,
rotation.
but how does it correct for the air pushing him around if it's not in
The
perfect
winds
sync?
are different than rotation. If he had to deal with rotation as well as winds, he'd be like an aircraft pilot that lands on a moving surface that has to keep moving with the surface as well as deal with winds pushing him
But
out of that sink,
the thing
right?
is,
He has to be in sync with the boat.
sorry, when he's
someone that knows
when he's
mathematics?
at the when he's actually at the airport, and he actually is moving in sync with the ground, right? He can see the ground. He has
No,
GPS
it's just
or
a stationary ground.
location, right?
The thing is,
No. Sorry. If it's moving with the ground that's beneath him, does it matter if the Earth is rotating?
Well, if it was 1,000 miles an hour eastward tangential velocity that the plane had to be doing, there has to be dynamics to account for that. He took off from the
Yes.
pole in his Cessna,
Yes, but
and he's only going
let's
100
say he
miles an
did
hour
account
forward
for that
with no
before
aim.
he landed.
Yeah, but you just have to believe it happens. There's no dynamics.
No.
to say that the
Let's
plane's now
say
moving
he
1,000
did account for that. How would
perfect
it?
sync.
If he did account for that, let's say he arrived. He's like a few kilometers away from the airport, right? So at this point,
Okay.
if he has accounted for that by the time he reaches a few kilometers away, then that job is done, right? There's nothing more
No.
surprises. The only thing that's surprising him at this point is the wind,
It has
right?
to keep going with the rotation doesn't stop, so the plane can.
But how much do you think how much do you think the rotation is going to affect him, like over a few kilometers?
It's a variable. It's a variable that the pilot.
No, tell me, give me a number. Don't just say a lot.
There isn't any number. It could be anywhere from 0
No, it's not any number. You can just calculate it. It's not any number.
There's no calculating.
You know exactly what it is.
There's nothing to measure. There's no eastward air movement, right? The wind's going all directions.
Use the numbers. You can calculate this. You can calculate this.
Someone got
you can
calculate it. That's my
nobody
point.
can understand what you're saying.
Listen, you can calculate it because kinematics and using the mathematics just to make it seem like it's happening doesn't actually account for the real dynamics, which could be a variable of all kinds of speeds with winds pushing him in opposite directions. So the dynamics wouldn't work out, right?
No, so you know what the numbers are if he were to do
the
what
numbers
I
are
said?
Zero, right? The Earth is stationary. I know the Earth is stationary.
No, sorry, I did. Sorry, perspective. You're not following the conversation. On a rotating Earth, like therefore it is. Like I could just say, well, it's spinning, so like you have to account for it.
Well,
else,
that's exactly what you
wrong, listen,
right?
This is the funny part. Now listen, this is the key part. The globe claim, whether you think it is or not, the globe claim is because the air co-rotates, the pilot never has to worry about rotation at all. That means the pilot can treat the Earth as perfectly stationary because of the concept that the air co-rotates. So they act like it's perfect, even though it couldn't be perfect. That's the problem.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't act like it's perfect. It has INS.
That's what they say.
No,
they say that the
INS, the pilot doesn't have to account for it, but the airplane, a modern complex airplane, has to take into account.
No, he has no ground path. He's a joyriding pilot that can.
You're not hearing what I'm saying. I didn't
say
the airplane. The INS have to take into account, not the pilot.
No INS. I'm saying no INS. My whole scenario from the start: the joyriding pilot in a Cessna with no INS and nothing to no ground path to correct for, and he still treats it as stationary because it's stationary. And the air to never be able to move the plane 1,000 miles an hour backwards when he's facing westward. And flew in from the pole, only going 100 miles an hour forward, right? And you have to believe the air is carrying the plane backwards at 1,000 miles an hour now as he's slowing down to land in the opposite direction. And that's just your imagination of that happening because there's no forces pushing the plane backwards as he's slowing down to land in the opposite direction. I just said no INS. He's a joyriding pilot without the mechanical INS.
Yes. Okay, so you have your own world where you have your own conversation with yourself. I have my own claims, and I say I have my own claims. You have your own world where you're talking to yourself, and I'm addressing what you're saying.
You didn't hear my point? There's no INS. My point from the start was as a joyriding pilot with no INS.
So INS doesn't exist, or so INS?
No, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying a pilot doesn't need that to treat the Earth as stationary.
So if an airplane is going to fly
through
clouds,
making a point about the INS, which is set from the start, doesn't validate the Earth rotating. That's just
no, it does. You know why? You know why? It's like if you have an airplane, they are classified for flying in certain environments, and the airplane who doesn't have this complex equipment, they're not allowed to fly into clouds because they can actually lose the orientation. The gyro, the HUD, might be actually showing wrong information. So that's why you cannot fly.
You're saying that pilots aren't allowed to fly without an INS?
certain airplanes are not allowed to fly into clouds.
Sorry,
And we're not
can I?
talking about certain, we're talking about a Cessna. The scenario, the hypothetical, you are so good at taking into
Sorry,
account, right?
can I put a
Hypothetical
word
is that
because
he's got no ground path, no INS. He flew against the spin from the pole to the equator, west southwest against the spin
Yep.
with no INS, just a joyriding pilot, and
Yep.
still treats the Earth as stationary.
Yeah,
And a
but
random
his
clearing
well,
gyro
no,
because
still
it's
compensate
stationary. The air would
He
never be able.
actually
He doesn't
for the
compensate for
gravity.
he
anything.
treated
Yeah.
He's just a
he
Time out.
joyriding
treated it
pilot with no
as
INS,
Hey,
which
he
is
new
your
treated it
scenario like
perspective. Time
started with.
out. Can you guys
Keep it
time
to
out real
yeah,
that.
yeah,
quick?
yeah.
Hey, new
Only you get a
perspective.
time.
Hang on, you guys. News perspective. I think you would benefit from a volume standpoint of. Are you on like a speakerphone or something?
Am I too loud or am I soft?
Are you or like
You're
yeah?
talking
It
too
sounds like
much.
you're. Yeah, it sounds like.
That's the problem.
Oh no, dude.
Bad?
Stop from that. But like,
Here, I'll just turn it on
it
speaker.
sounds like you're on speakerphone and you're having too much input onto the microphone.
Let me try now. How about now? Way better?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So
Sorry
I
about
think
that.
that like whatever that is, that would
It's
help
just speaker.
relay your point better. Yeah.
Okay, so the point from the very beginning, I'll draw out the scenario. It's a joyriding pilot going west southwest against the spin from the pole to the equator against the spin. He's got no destination. He's got no ground path to correct for, and he just lands as if it's stationary in the clearing, the random clearing. So what's making the plane go 1,000 miles an hour eastward in perfect sync with the planet's surface, right? If it's a planet that's rotating, the plane would have to be moving at 1,000 miles an hour in perfect sync with that rotation, with this eastward tangential velocity being so perfect that he can always land as if it's stationary, even though he's got no INS, he's not correcting for anything, he's just going on a joyride, right? So that wouldn't be possible, and the air doesn't even have the dynamics to make the plane go 1,000 miles an hour backwards when he's landing against it and slowing down. That's just your imagination that the plane's in perfect sync, or it's 5 mile an hour difference, and we can think about it like a wind, or all those other excuses. If the Earth were moving at 1,000 miles an hour compared to where he took off, there would be dynamics to account for, and because he doesn't account for that and treats the Earth as stationary,
but you haven't once
it's the kinematic concept. It's just a kinematic concept versus the dynamic reality.
Yeah, but you haven't quantified it one time, and I asked you to do it, and you said no, I did it because the Earth is stationary.
No,
So
I didn't. I said that the
yes,
globe
you did.
said.
Okay, then quantify it.
I said the quantifying is that the globe claim is that the plane's in perfect sync because the air co-rotates. That's the official claim, which is ridiculous.
No. You're also saying no. It's also addressing what you're saying. Like the globe, it doesn't take it into account. First of all, it's a very small force, right? It's a very small pseudo force that's applied on the airplane. That thing you're talking about.
1,000 mile an hour.
Quantified it. You're saying
the equator. How could it be a small force?
How long time does it take for an airplane to fly from the south pole to the equator? How long?
Yeah, but he's not correcting for anything. You were originally trying to say
new
because
perspective.
of the INS
I'm asking you how long time. Can you please address? Right? Can you, for the love of God, just address what I'm saying? How long time does an airplane take to fly from the south pole?
It doesn't matter. That's the point. He could joyride. He could go all around the Earth. If he had enough gas, he could just do like circles around the Earth and then
you're
get
saying
up
he's not using GPS to follow tracks on. You're saying the airplane doesn't. He's aiming. You're saying no. Let me address this, right? So it sounds to me like you're saying he's just aiming north, and he's not looking at any airspeed, or he's not looking at any waypoint. He doesn't look at. Okay, even joyriding. Is he just blindly flying without looking at the ground, or he's not using any waypoints or any flight plan?
He's just going to find a random clearing. Got no destination. He's got no.
So he's going to fly to South Africa, and he doesn't correct for any. He doesn't correct for any.
He doesn't even know where he's going.
And the wind is going to eventually fly 1,000 miles per hour, and it's not going to affect the airplane.
Yeah, I'm saying that the rotation of the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour, what he's landing on, without correcting for anything. So how would that be possible if he's still treating it as stationary?
I can tell you what
even more
problem is.
importantly,
If I say the pilot assumes it's in lockstep, therefore it is lockstep, you would say that's faulty. But if the pilot treats it as stationary, it is stationary, is fine by you. It's a double standard of logic.
No, I'm saying the double standard is the globe claim. The globe is the globe. The official globe claim is the air co-rotates, and because the plane flies in the air, we can just assume that the pilot can treat the Earth as if it's stationary, meaning that they're saying the air makes it perfectly in sync, right? And that would be impossible because there's no dynamics for it. He's never corrected for it. He lands as if it's stationary no matter what, even if the winds are going in the opposite direction, which is the air pushing the plane. You can't pretend the air is pushing the plane eastward if there's no forces there to account for that.
Well, can we
The next
actually
10,000
address
feet
the
of
question?
air above United States of America isn't the entire atmosphere. So when people say they treat the atmosphere in lockstep, that doesn't mean the air, like in a particular area at a particular time, is completely in lockstep with the Earth. So don't conflate
but the plane would have
local
to be in
air
perfect
part
lockstep.
with the entire atmosphere.
Yeah, but for the plane to treat it, for the pilot to treat the Earth as stationary, the plane has to be in perfect lockstep.
That is wrong. When you land in an
It doesn't
airplane,
have to be in perfect lockstep.
when you
It has
land in
wind
an
anyway. I
Winds
don't
are not
understand why
the
you're
same
saying
thing.
it.
Winds are different than rotation.
Sorry, you're double
He never deals
speaking.
with
For some
rotation.
reason, it's able. For some reason, a pilot is able to correct for a chaotic wind pattern, which we
And
don't
different
have
than
any,
rotation.
which we
Winds
don't
are
have.
different than rotation.
It's different, but it's not.
Yep,
it's
different.
less predictable. For the Earth rotation, you have perfect predictability, and for some reason, the pilot is completely clueless about it, even though it can
that
actually
means it's
see the
stationary.
ground, and it
He's
can also
clueless
know.
about it.
It can. Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? So
Yes, I have a
if an
question
airplane.
after you finish, please.
Yes. If you have an airplane, it's flying, right? And then
Did he just cut out?
A wind going east will go against a wind going west, and that will
You just
neutralize
got back,
itself.
Anvil. Anvil,
Okay.
you just got back. You were dropped, and we couldn't hear anything you said till just now.
Yeah, he's been talking
the whole time.
Blah blah blah. No one could hear him.
Oh well.
No, he just started talking.
Somebody else was talking and they got cut out.
It also happened to me. Interesting.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Anvil. What were you trying to say?
Before you.
Or
okay.
All right. I'll see if I can fix my connection.
no, you're
I
good
think
now.
it was Discord.
Discord dropped people. Anyway, Sugar Cookie,
Was
what
the
were you
main
going to say?
interlocutor going to come back, or?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think Sugar Cookie had a question as well. He said it was an
Yeah, go ahead, Sugar Cookie.
For me.
All right.
I wanted to ask everybody a true or false question. You have to answer true or false. If the Earth is flat and stationary and not moving, right? There's no momentum to have to keep up with. True or false?
True or false?
True.
Right? Okay. If the Earth is rotating, is there a momentum that you have to keep up with? There is. True or false?
True.
Yeah, and if the air is viscous, it will be dragged along with that. Yes.
Yeah, but not in perfect sync because of fluid dynamics.
Right.
It doesn't have to be
perfect. Right, and we have jet streams going faster than the supposed rotation, so there's no worrying. There's no in sync about the atmosphere whatsoever.
The jet stream isn't the entire atmosphere. I fear that you're conflating again.
I didn't say that. I never said it was the entire atmosphere. I'm saying it could make the plane go supposedly 200 miles faster than the rotation. So how do you get in sync after going faster, 200 miles an hour faster? Does the pilot ever have to worry about being out of sync with the rotation ever? He would if it was rotating, and he never has to, so it's not rotating.
If the wind is blowing faster than in the rotation, And then he's on a. You I guess you accept that there are jet winds even on a flat Earth.
Yeah, jet streams over the flat Earth are totally
believe.
explainable. The jet
Okay.
streams are not.
So
caused
how
by
can he?
Earth
How can he change his speed to be exactly in lockstep with the ground when the jet stream is moving quicker than the Earth's surface?
That's my question.
That's happening on flat Earth. So explain how.
No,
Flat Earth doesn't have to worry about it. Earth is stationary, so it's an absolute reference frame, and he never has to worry about rotation. So he can treat it as stationary, just like all pilots always do.
Because
so
you're
he can
giving
he
up
can
your,
he can watch. So how does he
conservation
do
of
that? What does he
momentum.
observe? Sorry, what does he observe? What reference is that? Is that the ground?
I don't even know what your question is, bro. If it's stationary, he doesn't have to worry about rotation, which is the whole problem, because the pilot always treats it as stationary.
If the wind
no
is
matter
pushing
what.
him sideways, how does he know that?
It's different than rotation. You can't keep conflating.
Yes, I know,
winds
but I'm
as the
asking
same as rotation.
if the airplane is getting pushed sideways by the wind,
Yeah.
how does the airplane
Then
know
he knows
that?
about that. He knows about that. Those are dynamic
Okay,
forces.
he knows about
the
that.
winds
How?
are the dynamics, right? That's real dynamics that a pilot has to actually be trained to deal with. He's never trained to deal with rotation.
And how does he
because it's
how
not
does he know
rotating.
that? How does he know when
The
it's
winds
off
are
the track?
something he deals with. Flight simulators include winds with a stationary Earth. All flight simulators just use a stationary Earth with winds. That's all a pilot ever has
and
to do.
how does the
is
airplane
wind.
knows where it is in relation to the ground?
Because the ground is stationary and he knows where he is according to where
How does he know
be.
where he
You can
is?
have-
What
you have a
instrument
path-
does he
when you
use?
have a- when you have no INS system,
There are
right?
clouds.
There's
There are
all
clouds,
ways
right?
that
How
they
does
used to
he
have
see the
markers.
ground?
They used to have markers, right?
What's the
Towers
answer you're
that they would
looking for,
follow,
AI?
right?
My
So
lord.
before the INS system and the computerized thing that's tied to the spherical graticule to make it seem like you're on a ball still, and you can say the coordinate system is making him correct for his rotation, and it's all locked in. That's just the INS tied to the spherical graticule, which is a reification of a globe, and they don't even worry about the rotation. They fly point A to point B, and the path would be completely different if it was rotating, because you'd be flying towards 1,000-mile-an-hour city, only going 200 miles an hour east.
Wrap it up.
Okay, I get it. So I was just asking, how does there are clouds as well, right? He's over the ocean, so he doesn't have any reference. How does he know where he is on his flight path?
He doesn't have a flight path. My scenario was just a joyriding pilot that can always treat it as stationary no matter where it is.
Airplane does have flight path. So how does he know where?
Some do, but I'm saying it's not necessary for him to be in sync with the Earth, because he can fly with no ground path and always still treat it as stationary. So that point is moot.
Okay, how does somebody free flying? You think he has no idea where he is, or you think he knows where he is?
It doesn't matter where he is the point. It doesn't matter about what the hypothetical is. It doesn't matter.
I don't know what I'm talking to. So you're talking as if airplanes doesn't know where they are, like a pilot doesn't know where they are.
You're saying my hypothetical is somehow with reality, even though you were the one saying, "Can I deal with a hypothetical?" The hypothetical, it doesn't matter.
This is not the hypothetical. This is reality.
My scenario was a hypothetical. Now you're saying, "Oh, you think pilots don't know where they're flying?" Like I'm trying to say, all pilots don't know where they are. You just straw man.
Hang on 1 second. One second.
Well, didn't pilots use radar systems in the past?
However, just listening to this, a guy seems to be. You seem to be baiting him into an answer that you want him to say.
It's called spiraling,
and he's not going to.
I'm asking him how airplanes know where they are.
However, hang on. Also, as a listener, new perspective, you seem to be somehow spiking my cortisol levels in some way. I don't know how. But,
hey man, that's sugar cookie, bro. We go way back. I've been doing this since we knew each other in 2017.
Right on. That's cool, but like, is it okay if you can like try to rebut a guy like without spiking my cortisol levels?
Yeah, a guy, make a real point. Don't talk about radar systems
lockstep,
and
therefore it is
straw man.
lockstep.
Don't straw man.
Your flat
graticule is just a reification of a flat Earth. Like the things that you say
Dude.
just
I
doesn't
never
make
said that.
sense
I never
because
said that. I
like
never
you're
said the
saying logic can
reification
be
of a
used
flat Earth.
against you when
Why?
you're going
Why
to interrupt me, clown.
Why
Anvil.
misquote
Stop
me?
interrupting me, clown.
If you're you're
Boy,
straw manning me,
Anvil.
so
shut
I
your
get to
mouth.
interrupt. I
Open
never
your
said
ears.
that.
You're not
If you straw
capable
man me,
Anvil,
of
I get to
why
not
interrupt and
interrupting
correct you.
people.
I never
You're not
said that about
capable
the
of shutting
graticule
your fucking
reifying the
mouth.
flat Earth.
Shut your fucking
I never
mouth,
said
little
that.
boy, and
You
listen
can't
to
just
other
say I
people.
said something without
Stop
being
talking
interrupted.
through
please, for the
people.
love of
Shut your
God.
fucking mouth and stop talking through people. I'm
Anvil,
halfway through what I'm
you
saying,
can't
and
just
you
tell me to
can't
shut my fucking
control
mouth when
your
you're
little
misquoting me.
childish mouth.
You're
Control your
Hey,
misquoting
childish
me.
mouth.
new
Listen to
perspective.
people,
All
little
you have
boy.
to
Shut
understand
up.
is what new perspective. What Anvil and A guy are doing is they're tag teaming. Once one of them shuts up, the other one starts.
Yeah, because they
And
can't stand the fact that it doesn't work.
Excuse me, perspective has been talking 90% of the time.
that's okay.
Like,
That's
you
okay.
cannot
But
sit
I'm
there and
just
say that
observing
fucking mean
that.
Alvis is hogging the
Because
mic.
I'm the
is
only
fucking
one that has a
ridiculous.
point to make.
I'm
And you're
not
not
Anvil has
saying
answering.
you
barely
guys are in
spoken.
cohorts.
I
I'm not
get
saying you guys
through
are
a
in
quarter
concert about
of my
anything.
point and I get interrupted and muted because someone
You straw
overtalks
man
me.
me.
Let's shut
No,
You
up,
straw man me. I
moron.
didn't mute you, by the
I'm
way.
Doesn't
I didn't
matter.
mute
talking
you.
and you're
Perspective,
still
you are
interrupting
retarded.
again.
You strawman us
See,
all the
you have
time.
to
Nobody
be an
maybe
interrupts you.
No,
Okay,
I
interrupter.
didn't
I'll,
straw
I'll
man
have
You
to
you.
be
admit
When
an
did I
this.
straw man
interrupting
you?
clown.
This is getting out
You
of control.
interrupting clown.
and
Stop
Yeah,
interrupting what I'm
Anvil. The
saying.
reason you
I'm
got
halfway
muted,
through what
the
I'm
reason you
saying.
got
Alright.
muted,
Stop
Anvil, is because
interrupting.
you
Stop
straw man me
interrupting.
and then you
Stop
kept talking.
So,
interrupting.
so
See,
I'll
you're
have to
being a
mute.
child. That's why someone
Do I
muted
have?
you.
you
You're
you
being
Do
a
I have?
child.
respect
No, I muted
everybody's
both of
cortisol
yous.
levels right
I'll
now.
mute all of yous in a second if you don't keep quiet. Now, some people have
Oh,
been
I'm sorry.
talking a little bit too much, and the other people haven't been getting a chance to
I'll stop right now.
respond. So just be a bit more polite
Yeah,
between
just
each
don't let
other and
Anvil
give
straw
equal
man me. I
time.
never said that
I don't
I never
care if
said
you're
the
straw
spherical
manning. I don't
gratitude
care if
reify.
I don't
You
care
can't
about all that.
straw man me and continue. Otherwise, you have no point.
You're trying to cut me
I
off.
want you to make a good point, but straw manning me from the
I
start
don't
doesn't
care
make
if
your point any
who
good.
straw mans you. It's not the point. Just have a bit more mic etiquette and let people be fair in your conversation back and forth.
Yeah, it's not fair to straw man. If someone straw
I
mans
don't
you, you
care
get to
about.
correct
What did
them.
I just say? I said I don't care about that.
I do.
Well, I'll mute you if you're going to keep carrying on like this.
Okay, he knows that he can't straw me. I didn't say spherical graticule reifies the flat Earth. I would never say that.
Well, wait till he's finished saying what he says, and then you can
I
say what
actually
you want
didn't
to say.
say. I actually didn't say the spherical graticule reifies the flat Earth. I said the flat
You said I said that.
graticule reifies the flat Earth. So before
You said I
you
said that.
mishear me and misrepresent me and saying I'm performing a straw man, know that
You
the
said I
flat
said
Earth has
that.
a flat graticule, does it not?
The Earth is stationary, right? So everything works as stationary. That's all my point is. It wouldn't be possible. Let me ask you this: if you were going to
It would be
train a
possible.
pilot to fly and land on a stationary Earth, as opposed to training a pilot to fly and land on a rotating Earth, what would be the difference in how you would train the pilot, Anvil?
Can I say?
I'd get them to adjust to the lockstep. If the
Adjust to the
atmosphere is
lockstep. If it's
slightly
lockstep, he doesn't
faster,
need to adjust.
and I'm halfway through again, new perspective, control yourself. If
Adjust
it's
to the
not
lockstep.
perfectly in lockstep, that translates to an additional 5 knots or less than 5 knots.
How do you know it's only 5?
That's not answering the question.
Yeah, where'd you get the 5 from? What if it was 50? What if it's 100 miles an hour out of sync? Then what? What's the pilot trained to do in that situation?
Still not answering Perspective's question.
Because there is no answer. The Earth is stationary. That's why they can treat it as stationary. They never have to worry about rotation.
It's treated
It's
as
not
lockstep,
rotating.
therefore it is in lockstep. It's see how that's not a good argument, but you're doing the same.
I said, what would be the difference in how you would train a pilot, right? How would you train a pilot differently if the Earth were rotating compared to stationary?
Sorry, can I say something? The thing is, nobody never trained a pilot to treat a surface at the ground as a stationary object because it doesn't make any sense. Because when you're in a plane, the ground is moving in relative to you, so it's not stationary
What's the
towards you.
difference? But he's got a very good question. It still hasn't been answered.
Yeah, if the Earth were rotating, you wouldn't be in perfect sync.
Yeah, they
you can't
are.
pretend it's in
They are
perfect
flying
sync
as
unless
if.
there's dynamics.
Yeah.
The dynamics would have to make the plane in perfect sync, and the dynamics aren't there.
Yeah. So yes, they don't have to deal with. They don't have to, like, people who the guys who make the airplane equipment. They have to take into account, sure, but the pilots, they don't have to deal with Earth rotation. But the thing is, the reason why I'm saying that your claim is that they have to, right? And I asked you to quantify
my claim is they don't have to.
I asked
my
you
claim
how.
Is they don't
I
have
asked
to.
you. No, sorry,
they
would
don't have to because the Earth is stationary.
Sorry. Yes. Perspective. You said they would have to if the Earth was rotating, right?
Well, if the Earth were rotating, you couldn't treat it as stationary. My point is that the pilot's trained to fly and land as if the Earth is stationary in all respects, right? So if the Earth were rotating, the pilot would have to be trained different because he would never be in perfect sync because there's no dynamics making the plane in perfect sync, right? So you couldn't do it. You couldn't have it. A pilot trained is treated as stationary if it's not stationary.
Yeah.
If it is stationary.
So you're saying yes. So I understand. So you're saying if the Earth was rotating, it would have to take into account the Coriolis effect on the airplane.
No, not Coriolis. It would be 1,000 miles an hour. The difference between the pole
that is Coriolis.
and the equator.
That is Coriolis.
Well, no, it's not really Coriolis. Coriolis is just a mild drift, and if they do have a gyroscope, they just calibrate that. It's just the Sagnac effect. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with rotation. The Coriolis
kind of like a red herring.
It is Coriolis, but it doesn't matter what name you give it. I understand what you mean. You are saying Coriolis. If you don't think it's Coriolis, I don't care.
Well, hang on.
No, I'm saying the Coriolis isn't involved because they say that the Coriolis would be less of an effect than the winds anyway. So that's how they get out of saying that he doesn't have to correct for any kind of rotation that way.
Well,
but this still be 1,000 miles an hour. Just keep it to 1,000 miles an hour. That he's landing on a surface that's moving 1,000 miles an hour.
But the Coriolis effect is the continuous change of the reference beneath the airplane speed, so it appears
to apply. Would be so much more powerful.
Appears to the airplane is moving inertially, but the ground beneath it is changing its velocity.
Yeah, that would be the Coriolis perspective.
That's why the ground is moving at 1,000 miles per hour while the airplane is not.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is that
Coriolis.
They say you would never worry about Coriolis.
That is Coriolis effect.
Right, but I'm saying that the official claim is they don't have to worry about Coriolis because winds would be so much more effective on the plane than it's just lost.
The claim you're making is that they would have to take into account Coriolis effect. That's your claim.
If it was rotating, the Coriolis effect would be just a 15 degree.
If you cannot say yes to this, then I have no idea what your claim is.
No, because it's different. Actually, the Coriolis force, which is different than the Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is the apparent drift from a third party. The Coriolis force would be a westward movement, right? Because it would be moving, if it was going south, it would force the plane, or not force the plane, it would be an apparent force because the Earth rotates out from underneath it faster eastward, right? So it would be a direction westward, right? But then
that's what would happen on the rotation.
That's why but that gets confusing because it's only a 15-mile-an-hour drift east.
Yes, that's how big. Thank God. I'm just glad he's fucking kicked out.
Perspective. Where'd he go?
He was very annoying.
God damn it!
I didn't kick him. I only usually mute.
Yeah, he's probably coming back. Yeah.
There you go. Hey, perspective. Stop arguing their point.
I'm saying that
if he doesn't understand, that's his claim. His whole claim is about Earth rotation.
And the pilot would need to deal with rotation, but because the pilot never deals with rotation, the Earth is not rotating. That's not their point. That's my point.
So yes, so it rotates, and that's the Coriolis force. When he moves, if he is at the same place, it doesn't matter. I think we both agree there, right? If the airplane is just flying locally in like just a tiny radius, Coriolis or rotation would not matter. If it flies over a longer distance, from the South Pole all the way to the equator, it would have to take into account gradually the speed catching up to 1,000 miles per hour.
He never has to do that. He never has to do that. That's why we know the Earth is stationary.
Yes, we understand that perspective. So your claim, I just want to reiterate to understand your claim. Your claim is that they don't take that into account. But I'm wondering, I think you need to quantify how much of that force that's happening.
It doesn't matter because they don't take it into account.
No, I'm just asking you, how much is it? Do you know how much it is? Because if we are saying it's so small, it's insignificant, then you need to show that it's so big that they need to take it into account.
No, my criticism is that
you can't just say that they just take it, they don't have it.
I'm criticizing the official claim. The official claim is they don't have to take it into account at all. They just say the air co-rotates, so it's just like it's stationary.
Why is that? And why is that? And why
they
is
just
that?
say it because
no. Why is that? Perspective. Be honest. Don't be dishonest. Say why.
So they have to just say claim that it
perspective. You're like very. This is a straw man. This is a straight straw man. Why are they saying that?
I'm just saying what the official globe claim is. All the pilots claim they treat the Earth as stationary. And most Globers that know this argument will say there'd be no difference in training a pilot to land on a stationary Earth as opposed to landing on a rotating Earth. They say there would be no difference. So all of this accounting for never happens because it's stationary.
Why is that? Perspective, for the love of God. Why are they saying that? Can you try and Steelman why they are saying that perspective? Can you try and Steelman?
Because they have to excuse the fact that it's stationary and say that it's in perfect sync, even though the air.
No, they're not. No, that is not Steelman. That's just a straw man. That's not what they're saying.
No, that's what I'm saying. It would make
that's a straw man. You cannot even say what the claim is. It's ridiculous.
So
I'm criticizing the official.
You can't even Steelman the argument, then what's the point? Like,
wait, I was asking you to Steelman it. Are you saying the air would make the plane in perfect sync? That's the globe claim. Are you going to say that makes sense?
No, I'm saying that it's the Coriolis force is so. The Coriolis force is so small that it would be insignificant comparable to the other forces acting on the airplane. And in addition, they're using Can I finish? You asked me a question.
Yeah, hidden in the winds. Like I said, the Coriolis force wouldn't make a difference. It's 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation.
So you're saying it is so big that they would have to take into account. And I say, okay, if it's that big, show me what's the force. What's the Coriolis force? Can you give me a number? It is a number.
Problem. The Coriolis force doesn't mean a thing. The winds would be more powerful. They say.
Problem so that you can't do the math, and you don't even know what the number is. That's the problem.
There is no number because it would be random.
Yes, there is a number. It has a force. It can be small and it can be large.
Winds are unpredictable and compounding. So the winds would be more.
You can't even fucking answer it. If you can't know what the number is, then what's the point?
There's no predictable number.
The whole
because the winds
is
are
relied on this number, and you can't even say what it is.
There's no number you even have. The globe claim is there's zero.
I have calculated it before. It's not that hard. I'm asking you if you're making a claim that
the number. The globe says that there is no Coriolis, but they say there is.
The globe. I am the globe. I'm telling you. I am the globe guy. I'm telling you. The claim is that it's so small, it's significant, and I can also show you the force if you wish to. I can calculate it.
It's so small.
I can calculate it to you, but you haven't done it, and you make a claim that it's so large they have to compensate for it, but you don't know what the number is.
That's so large. I'm saying the fact they don't compensate for it means it's not rotating. Otherwise, there'd be some kind of compensation going on, and there's none, and that's the globe claim. Because it's stationary.
Does it have to be if it's small?
In what way?
Why does it have to do that if it's small? I don't understand.
How would you know it's small? There could be winds pushing it opposite direction.
We know how big the Earth is and how quick it rotates.
You're talking about.
We know how big the Earth is, and we also know how quickly it spins. It takes 24 hours to rotate.
The bottom line is it has to be moving in sync with 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation.
The fact that you think we don't even know what the number is tells me that you're clueless about this subject. Yes, you did.
I never said you don't know the number. It's 1,000 miles an hour that he has to be in sync with. It's the only number that matters. The Earth rotating at 1,000 miles an hour each word, he has to be in perfect sync with. That's the only number that matters. Regardless of what you think about winds or Coriolis, the plane has to be in perfect sync so he can treat it as stationary, because any Glober that knows this argument says there'd be no difference in training a pilot to land and fly over a stationary Earth compared to a rotating one, which wouldn't be possible without the dynamics to make that happen.
The forces are very small. It's less than the wind. The wind would push the
Doesn't
airplane
matter.
more
That's what I'm
around.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
wind is
And the
pushing
wind,
the
it's somehow it's able to compensate for the wind without any problem. But somehow it's completely impossible to compensate for this small Coriolis force. So I'm not saying it deliberately.
I never
It's
said that.
extremely
You're just trying
small.
to minimize it.
It is small. But you don't even know what the
No,
number
1,000
is.
miles an hour is fast.
You're just saying they have to
1,000
compensate
miles
for
an
it,
hour
even
is
if
the
it's
bottom
small.
line, bro. 1,000 miles
That
an
is a
hour eastward
speed.
tangential
That's not
velocity.
force.
That's the
That's
bottom
not
line. That's
speed.
the only number that
New
matters.
perspective. No, it's not.
Sorry.
If you think that
That's
matters,
what he has to
tell
be in
me
sync
how
with.
much speed. How much does the speed change over the course of the airplane? Let's say
It
it takes
doesn't
like
matter.
6. It
It
takes
has to be
8
in
hours
sync
to
with
fly that.
1,000 mile an hour. It doesn't matter about incremental.
But that's
He's a
a
joyriding
speed
pilot.
that is
The joyriding
accumulated
pilot
over
can always
over 10
land as
hours.
if it's stationary. The
It
joyriding pilot doesn't
accumulated
correct
that
for
speed
anything.
over 10 hours.
The
If you don't
joyriding
understand
pilot
that
doesn't ever
matters,
correct for
then you're
anything.
sorry, you're not understanding the subject.
The joyriding pilot that I made the scenario from the very start about doesn't correct for anything. So you have to believe the air makes the plane in perfect sync, which is the official claim, even though it doesn't work.
Uh-oh.
It doesn't have to be in perfect sync. That's
Yes,
a
it does.
straw
It's
man
treated as
of the globe
stationary.
argument. You can't
Your
even
accent-
say what the
Stationary,
argument
it has to
is.
be in perfect sync.
Well, hang on. Did
Sorry,
your
you can't
accent
even say what the argument is. You can't even
The
repeat the
argument
globe
is
argument.
that the globe claim is the pilot can
your
always treat it as
accent just
perfectly
changed.
stationary.
And
That's the
No,
globe
that's
claim.
not no. Why are they saying that? And you can't even say that
Because it's actually
that means
stationary. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. There's no
sorry.
steel man there,
That's
other
your
than the
your
air makes it
story
perfect somehow.
makes
Your
itself
I can say that
accent
the
better.
just
steel man of the
That's
changed.
globe claim is that the air makes it
You
perfect.
can't even.
That's the steel man. The
Yeah,
air makes it perfectly
No,
in
hang
sync.
on.
That's the globe claim.
that is a straw man.
Your
They're
accent
No,
saying
that's
it
the
to
globe
make you
claim.
feel
Look it
better.
up.
in the middle of
Look it up. They
your
say the air
statement.
co-rotates with the Earth, so the pilot never has to worry about rotation. That's the claim, not my claim. That's the globe claim that you have to defend.
Yeah, because the Earth has
in
texture
the
and the
middle
air is
of
viscous.
trying to
And the
defend
mass
his
of the Earth
claim, his
pulls the air
accent
towards the
changed
ground.
from
Yes.
Indian
There are other
to
forces it has to
America.
take into account that are far worse than the Coriolis force. It's so small,
So
it doesn't
is
matter.
nobody gonna?
It's
Yeah, it still has to be
insignificant.
1,000 mile an hour eastward, right? With the perfect rotation, 1,000 miles an
Yes,
hour
and that's small.
flying
That's a
from the
small
pole
force.
without any kind of corrections. He can't be going 1,000 mile an hour backwards
That's a small. That's a
as he's
full.
aimed
That's a
the opposite
small number.
direction. 1,000
That's
miles an hour is not
small
small.
number.
Just
Hang on.
That is
minimizing
a
it.
small number
1,000
when it
miles an hour, not
accumulated
small.
over
He
8
started at the
hours.
pole with zero. He started at
Yes,
zero.
and then it took,
Plane has
and
to be
then
doing
10
eastward
hours
1,000 miles an
later,
hour. That's not small.
boom, is flying, and then 10 hours later, it's at the equator. That's how long time
And
it
he's
takes.
going
hang on
1,000
one
miles an hour
second.
backwards as he slows
Yes,
down to
after
land.
10 hours,
So
it takes 10
nobody's
hours
That's
to move
ridiculous.
that quickly.
It's a concept. You can believe it, but you just have faith that that's happening. It shows
Yeah,
that you
but
have
we know
faith that the air
know
makes that
that the
happen.
air is viscous, and we know that the Earth is textured.
Process of him
And what you're
saying
Not
imagining
viscous
is a
enough and
perfectly
not in sync
smooth
enough.
globe with air that isn't viscous. So you've got a faulty.
No, I'm saying the air is viscous,
Proposition.
but not
hang
viscous
on.
enough to make the plane in perfect sync. You can't just act like the air makes it in perfect sync. It's viscous, but not that viscous. And there's no dynamic forces even detected. You just have to believe the Earth
entire
that the
thing is
plane's in
bullshit.
rotation. It's
The
just a
entire
belief
thing
of
is
you guys
bullshit.
thinking it all works. The globe
Well,
says it.
you know
The
who
pilot
you're-
never has to account for it.
Hey, new perspective. You realize during the conversation that you were over talking a new or whoever he was, his accent changed. I noticed it. I don't know. I can't.
It got
there's
more
no way
American
to
sounding, huh?
timestamp. Yeah. The people that you're talking to and debating with this shit are full of shit, and it was proven.
I know. It's funny though.
By
because they
somebody
believe it.
doing some sort of accent generator or whatever the fuck that was.
What are you
Maybe
imagining?
I don't
If I
know.
go,
I'm not worried about
oh,
his
Mark,
accent. He
I
doesn't have
put
a
on a
point.
different
You know
accent,
what I mean?
therefore
It's
my argument
bullshit.
is wrong.
It's
Yeah,
false.
it's not a relevant point about the accent right now. They don't have an answer for the planes being in perfect sync, so that's the only thing that matters.
Well, the point I'm making is the person you've been debating for the past hour or two.
I know. I heard it kind of.
Is trying to be somebody who he's not, and that's
Well, it doesn't matter who they are. It's what they say that
That's-
matters, and they don't have an
That was
answer.
the
So don't.
different accent.
Now they're going to say, No, why do you care
It's
about accents? That makes
disingenuous.
you
It's
that
such a
makes you
red
the straw
herring.
man. That
His
makes you
argument stands whether he
now you're
has
giving him ammo.
an American
They
accent,
can
a
attack the
British
person, but
accent.
not the argument.
It
He
doesn't
could
matter
even have
the
a
accent.
Jamaican accent, man. His
The problem
argument
is they're
stands. You've got a
disingenuous.
red herring.
It means they're a fake person trying to relay information from somebody that they're not.
Who's got the alleged accent changer? Was a guy?
Yeah, we
Is
all
that
heard
your
it.
Hey,
claim?
Sugar Cookie,
This
don't
thing
worry
is
about the accent,
is
or they're gonna
recorded,
make
right?
they're gonna
Yeah,
make
go
the
back
talk
to the
about
live
all
stream and
about the accent.
rewind it.
Sugar
Rewind
Cookie,
Sugar
they're gonna
Cookie.
You
start
can back it up
focusing
with
on
evidence.
you because now they can focus on
wasn't.
you're calling them out about the accent, and it's gonna lose the point. I have to go anyway, but the point
Yeah.
is they didn't have a point about the planes landing as
Run
if it's
away,
stationary
Dave. Run away.
if there's no
Run away.
dynamics. Oh, Roohif's
away.
here.
No,
Let's
you
do
didn't
it
give
with
him half a
Roohif.
chance to
Let's
talk. That's
hear.
why.
Roohif has a totally unique answer to this. He thinks that the pilot has to do it, or the air does it, or something, but it's always in perfect sync. And it doesn't matter that it's going west southwest with no ground path to correct for and a destination that's just random. And he's landing as if it's stationary, even though he took off from the pole and would have to be going eastward at 1,000 miles an hour with no dynamics to account for that. They just treat it as stationary.
With no air.
What have I said the last dozen times we've talked about this? In fact, the question
Yeah, you
has
just
always
say the
been,
air makes. I'm not sure if you go with the corrections to begin with, or so your basic Glover defense attorney that you usually try to say works, but doesn't work because there's nothing to account. No, the pilot doesn't account for rotation, and the Globe claim is the air makes it so that the pilot never has to account for rotation, and there's no dynamics of the air moving the plane eastward at 1,000 miles an hour as he's slowing down to land in the opposite direction. Right? That wouldn't be possible. Unless
I
you
think
just believe it.
the best way for you to understand this, which I don't think
It's
you
not
ever
about
will,
me not
but the best
understanding.
way,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is
The
the best
best way
for you to
for
understand it.
hang on,
The
Roohif.
best way
Hang
for
on
me to
one sec.
gaslight you is to say you don't understand it, which is Ruhif's first move always.
Right.
Yeah, we've
So
discussed this for
Roohif,
hours,
hang
but the
on,
best
hang on
way.
one sec, Roohif. I've been listening to the conversation. I understand each perspective. However, you can't just be genuine and
Right, let's ask him the question
go
we ended
in
on.
and
Ruhif,
say,
Ruhif,
yeah,
what would be the
and
difference?
just
This
say,
is the best way to
I'm
answer.
halfway through asking
and
my
just
question,
say,
Dave.
and just say,
Ruhif, just answer.
doesn't
Sugar
know
Cookie,
what
wait, stop for a sec. Ruhif, the best way to answer this is, what would be the difference in training a pilot to fly over and land on a stationary Earth as opposed to training a pilot to fly over and land on a rotating oblate spheroid? What would be the difference in how you would train the pilot?
I'm
Let
halfway
him
That's what I want to
through
know
answer.
from
Let
you.
asking
him
my
answer,
question.
Perspective.
Yeah, I'm
Yep, go
halfway
ahead,
through
Ruhif.
asking my question.
Okay,
right?
Oh, you don't
quiet.
want to answer that quick question first?
No,
What would
you
be the
just keep
difference?
quiet and let him
I'm
speak.
halfway through asking my question. Is
Go
turning
ahead.
left, like banking left or banking right, is that an acceleration?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Well answered. What was your question? Do you have to train them differently? No. The only
Yeah, see, that means
difference
that's
would be
stationary
the
because
route.
that means that something's making it seem like it's stationary because you're not training them to deal with rotation. So whatever
Exactly.
the air does, right, it makes it like it's perfectly stationary, which is a dynamic claim that has no forces and no dynamics, right? There's nothing to say that we just could pretend that it's in perfect sync so that the pilot can treat it as stationary because we didn't train them to deal with rotation. That's just a concept that it's in perfect sync without any dynamics to account for it. Banking east isn't possible if he's going west southwest against the spin, and he's a joyriding pilot. And he's not correcting for any ground path, so banking east makes no difference, right? He's just going to land in a clearing and always treat it as stationary because the Earth is actually stationary. You can't say he's accounting for anything by banking east when he's going west southwest and not accounting for a ground path.
The easiest way for you to understand this, number one, is
No,
not
don't
to
start with me
start
not understanding.
halfway through a sentence, Dave. Right. The easiest
Yeah, but
way
you
for
always
you to
start with
yeah,
like
still haven't even, I got
gaslighting.
less
halfway through
words
his
in this
second
time than I did the last one.
Go ahead,
Less words
Roohif. Go
in.
ahead.
Right. The easiest way for you to understand this is not go south, southwest, or whatever. Just go north or south, right? And ignore the atmosphere. Imagine we had no atmosphere. That's the easiest way for you to understand.
Why do you have to make it a non-reality? Just deal with reality. He's going west
Because you don't
southwest against the
understand
spin.
reality, Dave.
That's what the other guy
reality
said.
is that he could go west southwest and always treat it as stationary without a ground path. That's the reality I'm talking about. And you have to explain how that's possible because you say there'd be no difference in training a pilot to do anything other than land as if it's stationary, which is laughable.
Well, hang on, Roohif. Stop. Is it okay as me as a listener for you to actually answer this?
He did. He said there'd be no
question?
difference. He answered the question. He said there'd be no difference in training a pilot to land on a stationary Earth compared to a rotating Earth. That's what he answered. That's the globe claim too, right? Which is ridiculous and laughable, but that's his answer.
Wait, hang on. Roohif, was that your answer?
Yes. You don't have to train to account for rotation. You do have to train, well, not train, but your flight route depends on the Earth being a globe.
There's no flight route. He's a joyriding pilot. That's why it debunks your globe.
Right. But why are you jumping to a joyriding pilot when you don't understand the basics
Because
of it?
it makes my point. It makes my point that he doesn't have to have a ground path, which makes you think he's accounting for rotation. It could just be an Cessna plane without any direction, without any aim, and land in a clearing that's moving 1,000 miles an hour to where compared to where he took off from. Now the plane has to be moving in perfect sync somehow without any dynamics. He never accounted for it. He lands as if it's stationary no matter what the scenario, which wouldn't be possible.
Perspective. Here's my question for you, perspective. Is how does your perspective even so Roohif agrees, like you wouldn't train a pilot differently. So how does that make your underlying argument? How does that support your underlying argument?
Well, because they only train the pilot to treat the Earth as stationary. And my claim is it's stationary. So it's perfect for my side of the argument. For their side of the argument, they have to have some kind of dynamics that are hidden in the background, making it just appear as stationary, even though they have to believe it's not, which is ridiculous.
So the conclusion is, Roohif agrees with you that the pilots aren't getting trained differently.
And that would be impossible because if the Earth were rotating, they'd have to account for it somehow.
No, they wouldn't. That's where you're wrong.
Why not? Why not? Why do they not have to account for it?
Because it's far smaller than the wind.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's hidden in the winds, right?
One moment.
The Coriolis is hidden in the winds, right? How's the plane moving 1,000 miles an hour eastward, Roohif? How's the plane dynamically in perfect sync with the rotation at 1,000 miles an hour? You have to answer for those dynamics. I don't. He just treats it as stationary. You have to answer for the dynamics, making it seem like it's stationary.
Let me ask you this.
The way to do it would be to understand the basics of it first.
Well,
the basics is there's no difference in training the pilot. The basics are training the pilot would be exactly as if it's stationary. You're the one that has to account for the rotation, not me.
Well, hang on 1 second. Hey, Roohif, if I may. Perspective. Imagine it's not an airplane. Imagine it's a helicopter or a drone. And it just goes up.
Or a hot air balloon.
And it stays there.
Yeah, the hot air balloon, right?
No, hot air balloon's not different.
Not a hot air balloon, a helicopter or a drone kind of thing.
Yeah, a powered aircraft.
Well, that's the other question. We could start because the kinematic claim is that the conserved momentum would just keep the plane indefinitely in sync. But the dynamics would be there'd be winds and there'd be like the pilot could fly against the spin.
Right, well,
so then once you have a force that's acting against that conserved momentum, like I ask sometimes, like what if the helicopter? How long can the helicopter stay in midair without any kind of looking at the ground or anything? He just goes straight up and just stays in the air. How long before the conserved momentum runs out because you got winds? And what if he starts flying against the spin? Right. So how long would the conserved momentum last? Even though it's just a concept and it never happened.
I tried to stop you before you made the straw man, right? If a helicopter or a hot air balloon or a drone goes up, right, it does not, if there's no wind, it does not stay over the same spot.
Wait a second. You can't say if there's no wind.
I'm trying to get Dave to understand
let him make that hypothetical. So wait, you're saying it does not stay over the same spot with no wind. Why?
Right. Because there's
no wind, there's no...
Let him answer, Sugar Cookie.
Yeah. At the surface, it has the tangential velocity with the surface, but if you go up to a height, that theoretical rotation rate is faster.
Which height? How high?
Well, it would actually be slower because it would lag behind. It wouldn't actually. They have jet streams that go faster, which is a contradiction.
Not talking about wind. Ignore the wind.
Right. So winds are totally different than the air, right? You separate the two.
Pretend we don't have air.
Right. Okay.
Right,
So then,
so nothing
what are
would
you?
lift.
Why are you saying that it wouldn't stay over the same spot?
Because the surface has a different rotational speed to any
Yeah, because
point
it's a
above the
bigger
surface.
circle.
Right.
It's a bigger circle, but the atmosphere is lagging behind. They say there's slippage, so the
Ignore
atmosphere doesn't move faster as
all
you
the
go up.
atmosphere.
Right? They have to claim super rotation of the atmosphere or some crazy kinematic ideas to make it seem like it could be going at the same speed as the surface, but it would actually the atmosphere would lag behind. There'd be slippage. So the atmosphere, even
Now,
if it was able to push the plane, it would be slipping behind. Right? There's slippage in fluid dynamics so they can't claim it's in perfect sync. So I don't know how
this
you
isn't
justify
Yeah, where we have
not
jet
training
streams
a
going
pilot
from
to
west to east.
Roohif.
yeah,
You're
faster than the rotation. They say.
Right.
Roohif, you're the third person here that said pretend there's no air.
Right. Because Dave doesn't understand the basics of it before we introduce the air.
No, I totally understand it.
You
You're
can't
just trying
do
to assume I
anything
don't
without
understand it.
that,
I
right?
understand.
You can't.
I understand, Roohif, that they don't train the pilots as you understand any different. Right? That means it's stationary, or the dynamics somehow make it seem like it's stationary, but you have no answer for that.
Or physics.
What is the answer, Dave? That you've given me 100 times.
The answer is it's stationary. That's the only way the pilot could treat it as stationary. That's the answer.
What have we told
But
you?
the globe claim says that the air co-rotates, making it so the pilot never has to worry about rotation. That's what the globe claim is. The air makes it just magically in sync.
The claim is that Coriolis is so tiny compared to the wind effect.
Yeah, hidden in the winds, right? Yeah, but it'd be 1,000-mile-an-hour difference from where he took off from at the pole. So he still has to be going eastward with a tangential velocity that matches the eastward 1,000-mile-an-hour rotation. But there's no dynamics that makes the plane do that to be in perfect sync like the globe claims.
Yes,
the
there
air
is. You bank left.
The idea that the air makes him he's not banking left. He's going west-southwest with no ground path to account for. So there's no dynamic claim that the pilot's adjusting for rotation. West-southwest. That's why I make it west-southwest with no ground path to make my point. And not you just say, oh, he banks east and he catches up to the rotation by banking east incrementally. That's not what happens with a joyriding pilot going west-southwest, which is possible. In an emergency situation, he would have no INS, no banking east. He could have no ground path. He's just trying to find a clearing to land in, and he can always treat it as stationary because it's stationary. He doesn't have to account for anything. Because it's stationary.
Do you understand? So going from the North Pole,
going the opposite direction.
Right, the North Pole to the equator, heading south, you have 12 hours or something to gradually bank left to increase your tangential velocity.
Why are you banking east? I make it west-southwest so you won't start with the banking east. He's going against the rotation with no ground path.
Do you understand?
I understand the excuse, which is why I make it west-southwest with no ground path. So you can't have that excuse.
Right, but do you understand that on a southern flight?
Ground path.
I have a legitimate question. Roohif and perspective. If there's something that you guys say to each other that is something that makes sense.
Get on with it. What makes sense is we agree.
Are you guys willing to change your Would you?
Wait, Sugar Cookie. We agreed there'd be no difference in how you train a pilot. So we agree that the Earth must be stationary, or Roohif has the dynamics that make sense.
Let me ask my question. Is there something that Roohif would say to you to make you change your perspective in Roohif?
I've been through it with Roohif many times, and he just keeps saying I don't understand, and then tries to make it a scenario where the plane can bank east, which I took away from him by saying there's no ground path. He's going west-southwest and landing in a random clearing and still treating it as stationary. So banking east has nothing to do with the scenario I'm talking about.
So is there a scenario where both of you are having a conversation and one of you goes, "Oh shit"?
Right.
Because Roohif would go to an insane asylum if he had to admit the Earth is actually stationary, like pilots treat it. I have to go, guys, but I'm not going to start talking. Anvil, you can talk when I leave, but I'm going to say goodnight. It would be hidden in the winds. He's got no ground path, and he treats it as stationary, so there's no banking east when he's going west-southwest, and it's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute.
Flight today, Heathrow to JFK. headed west-southwest, cause there ain't no better way. Gonna find that old Coriolis, they say she's hidden in the winds, but that just can't be if we rotate east, tangential gradient. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis must be hidden in the winds, but the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. And we all know every pilot treats the earth as motionless, so to think it must be moving is just insane, you must confess. But please don't get offended if this song makes too much sense. Just thank God that landing's easy with no tangential gradient in the winds. They said she'd just be hidden in the winds, but the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds, and the earth ain't moving faster with the further south we go. So thank God we won't be crashing when those wheels hit down below. Hidden in the winds, there ain't no Coriolis hidden in the winds, and thank God it's stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving with a tangential gradient. Yes, here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds, and their earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been, and thank God we won't be crashing when we touch down at the end. And thank the Lord, Earth is stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving. There's no tangential gradient.